Ladies, gents, welcome to the RappCast. I am your host, Rappsure, and we have some lovely guests here. We'll go around the room and we'll let them introduce themselves. So go ahead and we'll have you guys tell who you are and what do you do, what role you play, and if you like Overwatch 1 better or 2 better. All right, we'll start with Pyrdonis. Go ahead. Uh-oh. I know. You look quiet.
I hear an audio.
Yeah, I can already of him.
So
There he is. There it is.
My name is Joseph. Yeah, you can hear me? All right. Jesus Christ, take your time.
Yeah.
My name is Joseph. It doesn't matter. Pyrdonis, it doesn't give a fuck. I mainly do support, but I am a pretty good tank here. My rank, I guess, is diamond, if that really matters. And are we supposed to answer the question of which one's better, Overwatch 1 or Overwatch 2 in this game?
Yeah, just give it a quick, very
Yeah,
synopsis.
so Overwatch 2 is obviously better, though there are a lot of aspects of Overwatch 1 that needed to stay that didn't.
All right. Fudgy?
Hey, I'm jFudgy. I play a lot of tanks, suck at most of everything else, but I'm pretty good at tank. Been sitting in GM for a few years, not climbing, not falling. And I would agree. I think Overwatch 2 is better, but there is too many things from Overwatch 1 that they got rid of or changed to, I think, make it worse. To where some days I kind of feel like Overwatch 1 is better, but still, I think Overwatch 2 is a little bit better.
Alrighty, and so Spec.
Hello, my name is Spectrum. I play strictly support. I've been top 500 GM since I can remember, maybe season 14. And I think that Overwatch 2 was really good in theory and kind of like it's better in Overwatch 1 in some ways, but I'd be lying if I said that I didn't miss Overwatch 1. So
And that's I kind of agree with a lot of those statements. I believe overall I think I like Overwatch 2 better than Overwatch 1 for the most part, at least especially compared to like towards the end of Overwatch 1 where it was just like nothing would freaking die, right? But what are you guys' thoughts on 6v6 versus 5v5? And we'll start with Pyrdonis.
It really depends, I guess, with the role queue and stuff like that. 5v5 is obviously better. Though I am 100% against role queue. I am a super huge fan of I'm a super huge fan of the open queue system. It seems to be a lot more fun. So I think that 6v6 would have been a little bit better with that, mainly because there wouldn't be such an odd one out basically one missing from the lineup. It would be 3 tanks, 3 supports, and that would just seem to work better. Though 3 tanks, 2 support, or 3 support, 2 tanks seems to work really well too. I'm just not a huge fan of the role queue system, and that kind of defines how 5v5 versus 6v6 works for me.
All right, would you say there's any other big reasons why you'd say 5v5 is not as good as 6v6 as with open queue?
Hog had to get buffed for him to actually be good, and now that he's super buffed, he's super broke. That's about it.
All right. What about you, Fudgy? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'd say it depends. With open queue, I'd say 6v6 is much better. I really liked going back to like dive metas or even like right before goats meta where you had grab drag meta, and some people found that annoying. I personally liked it, but I mean, as a Ryan player, I absolutely love playing Ryan Zarya. I think the tanks were also more balanced in Overwatch 1, so I haven't tried open queue yet on Overwatch 2. I think it'd be a disaster. But in role queue, I guess 5v5 would probably be better because there's more space, but I feel like they have they have some issues on Overwatch 2, which I'm sure we'll get to later. It's tough for me to say. I'd say role queue, I'd maybe give Overwatch 2 the slight edge, but at peak, 6v6 open queue back like earlier comp seasons, Overwatch 1, I still think was the best Overwatch has been. So depending on the time, could be Overwatch 1, could be Overwatch 2.
Alrighty. What about you, Kayla?
I have to agree with Fudgy here. I think like open earlier Overwatch seasons was probably like the most fun, even though like I don't know if anyone played or even remembered like 222 with like double monkey, double Lucia, double tracer. Like that was like way back, but that was still probably one of the most fun comps to play with, and like, but that has to do with hero luck. But yeah, I think Overwatch 2, like, I will say it's disappointing that is role locked in a certain way. I do think it may should like go out into the aspects of maybe opening one of the two roles up, like maybe not necessarily one tank, two DPS, two support. Maybe you could switch
Flexor?
that around a little bit. Yeah, like have maybe like one DPS, two tank, two support. Maybe like just to test the waters, not necessarily like have it right away or anything like that. But I feel like the way that it was, decided that they would just take one tank away out of nowhere is kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I don't have an issue with it, but it's like it was just kind of weird. Put into theory, it was okay, and I guess in game it's kind of okay, but then you have DPS like Sojourn, and it's like this is just awful to play against.
Now, one thing I actually will say is I actually think I did actually suggest this on one of my tweets recently, where one of the slots would be flex.
Interchangeable.
So, yeah, you can have a 3 tank, or you can have a 3 DPS, or even a 3 support thing if you want. But you can still have the creativity and everything, which would make the role lock less stale. But you'd also have a structured format. Because I think one thing that I absolutely I did fall in love with Overwatch back when it was before those role lock. I fell in love because I started to play the game like Sombra patch is when I started to play the game. And, despite having a potato 30 FPS play, it was, I enjoyed the game. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed the game. But one of the things that as a DPS player, anyways, is that I hated competing to play in my role. As in, trying to, like, beat, it was either, like, you guys remember this probably from like the earlier days before even Guts was a thing, where people would either go like all like freaking DPS and then nobody would play support or tank because and that was just annoying as a DPS player. But I will say that I think I do like Rollock a little bit, simply because that one, it is able to prevent something like Ghost to happen, which I think was boring, in my opinion. But I also miss the creativity that you could do. Like I miss doing like all support game and not you can just run with it, for instance, or like all tank game and just run with it. And I also miss 6v6 just in general because of like the Reinzara comps, the Winston Diva comps. Those are really fun to me. I think that was where the tank role is at its healthiest, in my opinion.
Well, but the problem was that, and this is what everybody was, bitching about whenever it came to Overwatch 1, is obviously double shield, right? Orisa Sigma, right? That usually locked a lot of people down. That was generally just the competitive stance that everybody took, and usually delineating from that fucking kind of sucked. But that's one of those big things, and that's why I think either 2-on-2 or open queue. I'm mainly looking for 2-on-2. That stuff is so much fun. I've tried to ran basically 200, 300 different games over a really long time playing 2-on-2. It's unbelievably fun. And although the battles do take a little bit longer, I think that's what a lot of people are looking for in the game is, I don't want a one shot to basically, oh, everybody back out. We have to back out because we lost a supporter, we lost a DPS, and now we're basically fucked for the next fight. I'm definitely looking forward to we can lose a guy, but we still have enough people up front, or, we still have our couple of supports that can help our tanks out. And it really helps the support aisle. Not only, this is kind of my main problem with the one tank situation, is I have to either as an Ana or as a BAP or something like that, or a Brig even, corners are just so unbelievably important now that I basically can't heal half my team if they move past it. For, obviously people that are in the 10% or top, 5% of the game, obviously it's very easy for them to kind of work around that because they have that kind of skill. But I'm more worried about the 70 to 80% of the gaming community that, basically is not in like VC or stuff like that, that is really relying on randos and things of that sort to try to move forward. And it does really suck for people that are stuck in gold or are stuck in plat, that their teams will not listen to them or work in any way. And they're basically stuck behind a corner because they decided to play hog instead and try to get the one-hit wonders instead of actually worrying about your team and stuff like that. So To just say something about Rappsure, your kind of like flex idea, is really nice, but it's one of those things where what was the main problem that we had in Overwatch 1, or at least the problem that I had was there was usually that one person, right, that would totally go against the grain or play something totally different and really mess up the comp. And especially with lower elo players, a lot of them didn't have that kind of spread to play as support character if there were too many supports, or play a tank player and stuff like that. It just seems like with that kind of flex idea, you're running into the same problem, except nobody can do anything about it, right? If he flexes something that is not going to work with his team and he is not willing to change in any way, shape, or form, like there's not somebody else that can change. You're just basically stuck. It just makes that problem kind of like ×2, which sucks.
As a support player, Spectrum, would you say you have a lot of similar experiences?
When you say similar experiences, do you mean with Overwatch 1 or Overwatch 2?
Either. Well, I
Okay,
say right now, especially though, because with the whole entire one-shot meta going on right now.
Well, I will say, I guess kind of to go with what I mentioned earlier in Overwatch comps, like to prevent like stuff like goats and stuff from happening as a support player, I didn't necessarily have trouble like during the goats meta. I actually, believe it or not, I actually had a lot of fun during goats meta. The only meta that I didn't specifically enjoy is when it was goats with Brig, because that was kind of like that was something completely different. But even the meta to counter goats, which is counter goats, which was quad DPS, was a lot of fun. Again, as a main support player, I'm just Mercy flying around the map, following like 4 different DPS in a ball. So to me, that was just very enjoyable. As for right now, it's kind of, I guess, like that in a sense, because I play a lot of Mercy and I have to follow a Sojourn around, and it gets kind of boring, I'm not gonna lie, because if your Sojourn's good, she just one-shots everything and you just don't feel like you're playing the game. Vice versa, if the enemy Sojourn's doing good, you can't really do anything except sit there and watch as your team dies. So
You're
it's
just
like it feels really stagnant right now. Like you either win or you don't, and there's like nothing you can do about it.
When I think the stagnation is obviously because, and this is what I really liked about GOAT, is because you're using more of the map, which everybody at the beginning thought, oh man, we're going to use a lot more of the terrain. Like the map is really going to be important now, and not just walking through it. But it's become too important now. And people are really, especially at least in my experience as a support, are really hard stuck by that. Especially with Widow, with Hanzo existing, Sojourn's one pop basically existing. It's more of like you're playing CSGO and you're trying to peek out the op player, I guess, if for the CSGO fans out there. Right?
Yeah, you're essentially playing a game that's like fast paced, and with the fast pacing, I don't think as much damage should be done. So like, in Valorant, you peek corner, you get one-shotted, you're like, oh, I peeked the corner, that should have happened. You do that in Overwatch, it just doesn't feel the same because it's not the same game. Like,
yeah, it's not supposed to be that way.
You shouldn't have to be. Yeah, it shouldn't be that way.
I think
if I wanted to play an FPS, I'd play CSGO, right? I'd look for something different.
I think that one thing that definitely makes the one-shot meta even feel even worse than, because I think one-shot in Overwatch is the best way to go. I think that the healthiest time to kill, in my opinion, is a much middle ground between high and low. But another thing that definitely doesn't make it any better is the fact that the maps that are designed the way they are are not designed for one-shot metas. They're designed for a FPS MOBA. Like, for instance, push maps. It's one lane. It's one big lane, and you have to play around that lane and around the objective. Otherwise, you're just gonna lose, and whatnot. And it just feels awful. And I'm sorry, Fudgy. I see you in the corner. They're just kind of waiting, like, do you have any thoughts on it?
With the one-shot meta, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Overwatch can be fine if you have like one sniper on each team, but as it was kind of already stated, I think Overwatch makes itself feel different from games like Valorant or that, where it's essentially one shot, or CSGO, where you can just have snipers one shot in that. And Overwatch was kind of supposed to be the game different from it. And, having a good Widowmaker that you face in some games or have on your team, that's honestly not that bad if it's now and then. But right now with Sniper meta, where it's, usually like Widow Sojourn, Hanzo Sojourn, I'd even put Junk. He's not a sniper, but Vine and M1 combo just,
Delete you.
eliminates a squishy just like that.
And you can shred tanks
And
pretty
it's
easily
like,
too.
yeah, like running against two of that. I mean, as a tank, I don't really get affected too much because I'm not going to die to a sniper. But I see my team either surviving or dying. And problem right now is like Winston Diva aren't extremely strong. I think Winston's okay, but Hog is too good to where it kind of makes Winston weak. And Diva got nerfed pretty hard. I don't see a lot of Diva played.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you have double sniper meta, and the tanks that counter snipers are at best okay or map dependent. So it's just a lot of sniper, and as it was already stated, game feels stale, and it feels very like, I mean, I can do fine, I can get some kills, but as a tank, I don't even feel like the way to win is to make space. As of right now, the way for me to get wins in that is play Orisa, kind of go on the flank and just go hunt down targets, because I could stand in the middle and kind of pretend like I'm, making some space, but in the end, snipers are going to be able to hit their shots. I just have to go on a flank and try to kill a support, which has worked, but I don't know if that's the healthiest way for the game. And I don't like the whole super tank thing. I mean, I like being a tank and being super strong, and it's awesome not having to have anything to scare me, but making the tank so good that I feel like if you do try to go into role queue, it's going to be a given that you should at least go 2 tanks. Like, they buffed every tank so much. You should run 2 tanks. They're too strong as a hero right now. I'd even be fine with just weakening the tanks in a 5v5. That's coming from a tank player. I think we're just too strong, too unkillable. Although I get why they did it, I don't think it's working right now.
As a tank player, do you feel that because of that amount of power that you have, because of how much like you have an impact on the whole entire game, do you feel like there's a lot more pressure on you as a player to actually be able to do well and not die?
I would say yes and no. So Overwatch 1, you got to split the pressure with your other tank, but you typically had, smaller health pools, or for instance, with like, I play mostly Orisa, but like with Orisa in Overwatch 1, you were at like 400, 450 health, and you did have Fortify, but for a lot of it, Fortify, you could get headshot through it. So you had to be careful with your positioning. In Overwatch 2, 550 health on them, 600 to 700 health on other tanks. It's like, yeah, there's pressure on you to make sure you don't die, but you don't even have to really worry so much, because it's like, yeah, you're at, max health and you get headshot. Oh crap, I'm down to 350. Okay, let me play smarter. Orisa's got Javelin, Spin, and Fortify to not get headshot. It's like, yes, there's more pressure on you, but you'd have to be like getting headshot 3 times in a row or really out of position, where in comparison to Overwatch 1, like if you were running dive and you're out of sync with your other tank and die, like, yeah, you're down to 1 tank, but still puts you in a big hole. It's just really, really tough to make those mistakes in Overwatch 2. And it kind of feels like, for the most part, unless the tank is really, really struggling, the tanks just kind of don't die. I mean, the strategy to win is not really, oh, we'll just kill their tank. It's ignore the tank, try to get around them and kill the other stuff. Because I feel like as of right now in Overwatch 2, the best way to climb is like, yeah, I mean, if the other tank is throwing, kill them. But any tank with half a brain is not going to be dying as they're currently at right now, or at least not first in the fight. It's going to be who gets the pick on the DPS or support. So yeah, in a sense, there is more pressure on the tank, but it's not tough to just not die and stay alive on any tank right now, I would say.
But I mean, isn't that like that's a dichotomy, right? It's like you want to create something, you want to create a tank that can survive more than 1 or 2 shots, right? Actually be a tank, but you also want to have it give it the ability to repel or push back, opponents, obviously, because you don't want them to try to get to your backline. It's like, well, that's going to have to take some level of damage when it comes to Ryan. It has to be that kind of damage, right? Or it has to be his charge with a pushback. It can't be it's really difficult to make it anything else. For Orisa, I think that the Fortify and all that different stuff is very helpful for obviously her, but it's, past her spear, she's basically kind of like a tankier DPS, right? Kind of the same thing as Zarya. Once you run out of bubbles, you're just building charge for damage. That's what was the problem with Goats in Overwatch 1, and that's why Zarya was a necessity, is because she was basically the DPS of the entire game. I think that that is kind of the role of tank, and I want it to kind of stay that way, which is, I need to be this kind of tank, but I think that, the amount of damage that everybody puts out is insane, right? Um, I think that I don't know. I think they boosted or buffed Ryan Swing, right, a little bit. Was it
I
85 now?
I
think it
think
was
so. It's
85.
80 or 85. Yeah.
I believe it's 85.
So it's one of those things where that's really good in kind of like, he's the solo tank, he needs to have that, that is his main way to repel people is, if you get close, you're taking a lot of damage. But if we were to switch to 2-1-2, that would have to obviously drop because, you are going to be playing you're going to be playing that game in Overwatch 1 again, where it's like one of your tanks, sure, is still going to have that high level of, or high health, but is going to be more, either utility to getting certain spots and dealing good damage, or it's something like Zarya where it builds up and you can kind of roll through teams if you're not paying attention. But that's what I kind of like about Overwatch overall, and the MOBA aspect is it's really dependent on how the player like plays this kind of situation, right? I can play Widow here, but I need to make sure if they have a Winston, I got to switch, or they could be playing a Zarya, so I don't think Diva is a good pick here because if I use those rockets and she pops off, then I'm going to be like basically feeding her. So that's what's really cool about it. The problem is yeah, again, we're just jumping to more of a Call of Duty, but we have more health, right? And it's like, well, that seems very boring for everyone else except for obviously the big tanks. I think for me at least.
I mean, being the tank, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm trying to look at it from an outside perspective. Like being the tank is a lot of fun because, as you said, we do a lot of damage. We don't die. We get to go in and kind of do what we want. And
Especially
if there's,
playing home.
oh yeah, too true. It's nice, but I still kind of wonder. Like, I guess with the way they have it, it would probably feel better because we haven't had a point yet in Overwatch 2 to where there hasn't been just a top tank or two. I get the whole trying to balance DPS and supports and maybe it being tougher to do so, at least in role queue, because you have two of them on each. So you have to think like, oh, there are different combos you can do that are always going to be strong. Like right now, I think Mercy Kiriko is extremely strong, or Mercy Ana is extremely strong. But with tanks, I feel like they're doing a poor job at balancing it, and it's just simple like, there's only one tank. At least if you're looking in role queue, I think they've done just a really bad job at quickly balancing it. And I mean, what's new?
Yeah.
Overwatch being slow with balance changes
and terrible balance patches.
But yeah, like
Well,
as
but
of right now.
Oh,
Sorry, go.
okay.
Okay, I was going to say, like, as of right now, I feel like Orisa Hog are just the clear top two. Like, there are ways you can have certain maps in that, but what I think at the state of for the healthiest state of the game, if you have it to where there's certain maps where certain tanks are just typically better, like Dorado, Winston, Diva should probably be the strongest tanks. And a lot of push maps and some control maps, Ryan or Zarya should be probably the strongest tanks. Or I guess you could also put Ball in on Dorado Lake. And I feel like as of right now and earlier on when it was, Zarya, it was just run the strongest tank. It wasn't balanced enough to where those tanks that in theory should be good on certain maps aren't. And also they should get rid of the map pool. That's a whole nother thing. Because like they'll have it to where they're some dive maps and then we're gonna get rid of all the dive maps and now it's gonna be a lot more like Russian Brawl, and it's like it makes it tougher to balance. Just leave all the maps in and just balance the tanks to get them as kind of evened out as you can. I think that would help.
I don't think it should be just the tanks. What I really don't think is that there should be any kind of hero where you pick and you're like, oh, this is a free win because you pick that hero. That's why I think the balances definitely need to be like more often and attended to in that case because, like you said, Orisa is kind of insane right now. So is Sojourn. You pick Orisa, you pick Sojourn, you pick a Mercy to go with the Sojourn. The game just like it's like you basically win just from picking those characters, and if you play the character correctly. And I don't think that should be how the game works at all.
I like to point out that I do agree with Fudgy that I think having like map dependent metas would be nice because it's like having just only dive will work, only rush will work, or only death or ghost will work. It's just boring. It gets very stale, very freaking fast. Like I think being able to have multiple type of compositions viable and like very like at any time. It's just a nice thing to have because it's like I don't want to be running like double shield all the time or one shot freaking meta all the time or whatever. It's just a boring way to play the game. There's like a lack of nuance to it. It feels, and it just gets stale really fast. And I also think that Blizzard is just trying way too hard to what's the word? Like make everybody happy. They're trying to please everybody, but by doing so, they make nobody happy because they don't balance the game in a way where it's like, okay, you know what? Let's do top down. And they, like you said, the reason why they didn't get rid of Sojourn's one shot first was because below Masters, she wasn't being utilized for full potential. Of course, it's not going to be utilized for the full potential because that's the lowest, skill level amount of for players. But I think that something like a sniper, I do agree with Fudgy that only maybe 1 or 2 snipers should be in the game. I don't think Sojourn, the way that this bitch she was made, should not have been put into the game the way she was, and whatnot. And you also have to make snipers very punishable because they have that power to get picks and within a one shot. And Sojourn is just not very punishable, especially with a mercy pocket. You good luck trying to dive that thing. It's like. Sniper's supposed to be there's like these low mobility, low health, or like a glass cannon. But the glass cannon part of it is a skill shot. We're not seeing that with Sojourn, and it's just making the game unfun for everybody. If I had Go Soldier, or even if I Go Soldier, Cassidy, really any other DPS that's not Widow or Sojourn, it's just like I lose the game because I'm not ranged. They have better utility than I do. Maybe not Widow, but Sojourn. That just has everything. Overwatch.
I think that's kind of important to understand right quick is when it comes to balancing, quote unquote. Again, this is just the MOBA aspect. I learned this, my friends kind of taught me this one. Had an argument with them a little while ago. There's no way to balance every single character.
No.
There's going to be. That's why there's obviously seasons. There's aspects of the game where there's like mid changes and stuff like that because like there is no way to make it to where, okay, Sojourn, or Sojourn, Soldier, and both McCree can all be good at the same time, to where there's a good aspect of like, hit scans that you can just kind of switch from, and there be like very little difference. It's the same thing with tanks. It'll be the same thing with supports. There's always going to be a nerf, and there's always going to be a buff that will change it. And whenever we talk about the maps, it's the same way, right? I mean, we could try to get as close as we can, possible to make it to where any kind of competitive like situation can work, or any comp can work this way. But even if there's like a 1% difference, obviously playing at the higher levels, that 1% difference can make a difference. So it's one of those things where even if there is a delineation between maps, it's still going to be exploited, and it's still going to be used with certain types of team comps. And I don't think there's any way that you can make those maps accessible to every single comp. It's just unless you're going to make every map look the same like League of Legends. It's just there's always going to be that kind of difference.
Yeah, I would.
And
Go ahead, Rich.
I was gonna say, and I like that idea to where there's certain maps and you say, oh well, certain comps are just gonna be better on that map, and I like that idea of you're gonna have your maps with a lot of high ground where you need people who can take high ground quickly, people who can fly or jump or wall climb or should typically be better there. And where once they're very single level, that people who don't have those abilities to fly, wall climb, and such are generally a bit stronger in those. And I like that idea. And I know that you're never going to be able to balance it perfectly as well. But I still think that there's certain things to where it's like, okay, glaring problem. I mean, it doesn't go as a surprise to anyone. Sojourn just has everything right now. And
sure. And
nerf down Sojourn a bit. Like I think if you make small changes, you'll still have your metas per map, but it won't be too bad. And I think that's what people are just getting really frustrated because, I mean, everyone seems frustrated. Towards just like they're like, guys, could you nerf Sojourn just a little bit more? They're at a near 100% pick rate in like higher elo, and it's just getting kind of annoying because it's like can't blame them for picking Sojourn. Best DPS.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. You can't blame them because even if there's a 1 to 5% delineation, like it's still enough at top ranks to use Sojourn, right? Yeah. Maybe at lower, and I do care more about the oh fuck, I do care more about the 70% of the player base, obviously. I think that they, that's why I think these two kind of competitive arenas here should be looked at differently by the devs. But, when we're talking about obviously the top, like just any percentage of difference is obviously going to lead them to that character. It's the same with maps, and it's just that's why it makes balancing so unbelievably difficult. Because there's no game. Even League of Legends has this problem. Like 75, of their characters out of the 300 that they have, like, are just unusable. They're never touched because they're just you can boost them up all you want, but as long as that percent difference happens, right, or exists, then everybody's going to choose the ladder, especially at higher ranks. And it sadly become Overwatch. There's just enough characters for that kind of stuff to happen.
Even if it's just 1% too. Even if it's just 1%, it could definitely change.
Yeah, even if it's just 1%, they will just go, okay, well, there's that difference, so I'm obviously going to pick this character. Like, there's just no question. That's what I would do, and that's what a lot of people like in the Overwatch League or obviously higher play coaches are looking at, that kind of stuff, where it's like, okay, well, sure, this character got this buff, but like this character can still be used here, here, and here, and this character can only be used here and here. We're obviously using this character. It's like it's just going to happen.
I actually will. It's kind of the same thing with even CS:GO, where there is like a one-shot thing. It's like, for instance, like AKM4 is probably an op, are probably like the most accepted, like 3 guns in the whole entire meta right there. But then you also have stuff that have like the shotguns. You have the submachine guns, and the thing is, like, they all have their own place, right? They all have their own place inside the game. They may not be all of them be good in any situation. I think, like, for instance, like the AK, the M4, and the op can pretty much be used in most situations pretty well. You can't rush long and not get punished for it all the time with a Mac 10, for instance. It's just not going to work. But it's good for, like, say, I want to get a quick pick and just trade up for a better gun, and then use that. It has its own issue. It has its own things, and even TF2. I think TF2 is probably the most similar game in terms of like the hero shooter thing to Overwatch. Every single class has their own type of place in the game, and even have their own sub play styles. Like you have Demo Knight, or you have like Ambi Spy, for instance. But I find that the ones that tend to be, and TF2 hasn't had any updates for how many like years now? Like 5 now. It's crazy, and it has a pretty healthy balance. But it's like not every single character is good on every situation. Sure, you have the journalists like Soldier and Demo and whatnot, but it's not the be-all end-all thing, right? It's flexible. The meta is very fluid, but of course, something like Spy and Sniper are specialist characters, and that's also one thing that happens in any game. You see the characters that tend to have, or even playstyles that can be used in most situations, tend to be what is meta. For instance, like Sojourn is a generalist, but she's a freaking generalist, like specialist hybrid. She's like generalist with like specialist power level, essentially what it is, in all of her parts of her kit. And that's happened with release Brig too. Brig was like that too, where she was like a generalist, but like very, very good at everything that she did, kind of thing. And that's just another reason why I think that we're kind of help create some pretty bad metas and whatnot. And what are you guys' thoughts on that? We'll start with you, Fudgy.
Yeah, I think heroes like Brig and Sojourn, when they initially got released, like, it's fine to have heroes who are able to do a little bit of everything. I guess, for instance, of course, it's got to be Orisa on the example, but one hero that was kind of introduced as a generalist, like Orisa had a little bit of a shield, they had a little bit of a Zarya grav, a little bit of a kind of brawling ability with having fortify and be able to fight in close, but she was not overpowered when she was first released because they didn't make her insanely good at any single part. Brig was insanely good on every single part of her kit, and she could be used in anything, so you saw her in every comp. It was goats for the most part, but even if someone wasn't running goats and you needed a support, Brig was probably one of the ones to pick. And Sojourn, you have mobility with the slide on a relatively short cooldown. It's not like Widow Grapple where, it's a double-digit second cooldown to move around with Widow. Sojourn gets slide. I actually don't know the exact cooldown on it. I haven't played her much, but
I think it's 7 or so
like
seconds.
6, 6, 7 seconds. Yeah. It's like Sojourn's got that. They have rail to, even if not just a straight up one shot, because you're not always going to shoot it at full charge. You have the ability to get a target down 80 health and then rail after. So essentially a one shot ability. And even if you take away the one shot ability and the mobility in general, you still have pretty good damage on her primary fire. She was too strong and everything, and they've helped tone that down a little bit, but they toned her down from god tier to top tier, but not, absolutely completely overwhelming. She still is just too good. And if they if they want to keep releasing heroes that have a ton of different parts of their kit, and I get wanting to, release interesting heroes that have so many different things they can do, but I think it's kind of better to have more specialized heroes with kind of weaknesses, but then you're going to go into the problem. If you have too many of those, then you're going to have a bunch of counterplay. And I think the 30% ult charge thing kind of makes an issue with that, because at least with tanks, for sure, if you want to counterplay and you have too many specialized heroes, then okay, well, you're not going to get punished that much on the ult charge. Just counterplay.
I will say kind of on that, I think Overwatch 2 has done a really good job of making, okay, I say really good. They're 50-50 on it. Like, in Overwatch 1, when they would release a new hero, the hero would be just absurdly broken and have to be, like, patched, reworked, like, something would have to happen within, like, a week or two, right? I think Overwatch 2 has done really good because they've released 2 tanks that weren't necessarily broken, but they weren't like insanely like you could still win with the tanks, like I think Ramantra, even though his ult is like a little like crazy, I still think he's in a pretty good spot, like I've had a good amount of games won with a Ramantra player on my team and vice versa. Like I've lost against Ramantra. Like I think that was a really good like good release. As for Junker Queen, probably not so much. Like she was a little on the lower end, but I do like prop them for not giving her insane amount of buffs. I again, she's very situational. She could be a little bit better, but I do give them like props for not releasing 2 absurdly broken tank characters right off the bat. Kiriko and Sojourn, that's another story. That's why I said 50-50. Like, but I think they're doing pretty good with the tanks so far.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I the only complaint about the current thing with tanks is that, and one thing I don't like is the rock paper scissors thing that with tanks going on right now. It's just, or at least it was, especially in season 1.
Yeah.
Season 1, like, where it was just rock paper scissors was just not fun. And I think the 30% ult charge definitely did not make that any better, because you just keep having your ult charge for the next fight and whatnot. And it was just annoying to play against. Like, I'm not really a tank player, but I'd say that tank is probably my second most played role in the whole entire game. I love playing tank. Tank is fun, like what you said. Tank is just a fun role. But yeah, although I will say, I think there have been some couple examples of a journalist heroes that did not break the game. They're both, the 2 I'm thinking of are both DPS characters. I'm thinking of Soldier and Cassidy. The Soldier might lean more into the dive, and Cassidy might lean into the anti-dive, if you will. But I mean, they didn't like break the game by themselves, kind of thing. They may have accentuated certain issues, like back when Cassidy had like the flash and the 25 HP, extra HP kind of thing. It definitely did not make the already high health pool like meta any better. And of course, getting flashed and stunned with everything else did not feel great either for most players. But they weren't like by themselves. That they were journalist characters that were not like broken on release, for instance. And I think that's one thing to note. And I also want to say that one thing that like something like Seg or Sojourn or BAP even to a degree, and Kiriko especially right now, and really Sprig, is that they had so much uptime with how powerful their abilities were. It was actually insane, the fact that you can't get anything through, or when it did go through, it wouldn't get any value, kind of thing. Or hardly any value. And so Garrett, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I can understand that, especially when we're talking about Brig in Overwatch 1 when she initially came out. I mean, what her shield batch did, 25 health? I think it was. And still had the pretty solid 1 second stun.
Actually, I think it did 50.
No, it did a full.
I think
It
actually
did.
50.
It did a full
Yeah.
50. You can one shot Tracer without even an issue with that.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You could shield bash and then whiplash and hit her and kill her. Oh, that was awesome. It was the best. Tracer players are trash. But no, and I totally understand that was like 100% broken, especially with the 250 barrier and alongside of Ryan, and especially during goats. It was definitely irritating to play with, but I think it was one of those things where a quick kind of like switch to keep her at the 250 health, but like obviously your shield bash need to fix and stuff like that. Like it was small changes like that when I feel like, especially in Overwatch 2, because everybody's like really expecting, Blizzard and stuff like that to really pull through with this stuff, they can make really drastic changes really quickly. When they should be kind of like, maybe I'm the weird fan out here. They should be making very small changes, very slow changes. Whenever they said they were going to start doing changes like halfway through the season, I mean that's cool and all, but like make them very small, make them very like maybe slight health changes or changes to cooldown and stuff like that. Don't make really like huge active changes that can really change up the meta, because then it's just kind of like you're kind of ruining the idea of a season in the idea of a MOBA, right? For me at least.
I will.
Did that answer the question? I'm sorry.
Go ahead. So I will agree in the aspect that it's like if they make too many big changes all at once, it's like you're not gonna know what's going to happen, because you changed the game in so many significant ways that there's so much possible undesirable effects that you have not seen yet, that we can't even tell will happen yet, because it's just completely different kind of thing. And I will say that
it fucks up like half the it fucks up half the meta, because now you have to realize and figure out what the right move is. It's like, okay, cool.
Because you changed so much. However, I do think with a lot of changes that I made to like when they reworked Orisa and everything, I find the new Orisa a lot more fun than old Orisa. I think old Orisa was boring as crap to play for the most part. Maybe other than like the spam shooting and whatever. But even then, it wasn't that fun. I think that new Orisa is like this Terminator, and it's just fun to be able to do that, right? But I also think that with like since similarly Brig and Orisa had their stuff kind of like tweaked and removed or something, it's like I think that I should be fine going back to 6v6 with 222, because a lot of those things that would give that character so much out time or lack of punishability that I think that you could actually make it back to 222 with full 6v6. But that's
actually, I want to start fighting. Wait, I want to start fighting with people, okay? Because it's fight time. All right, this is what needs to happen. Keep the 5v5, go with it. Do the 2-1-2, but put Brig back where she was, like the update after her release. Whenever she got a little bit of those debuffs and stuff like that, bring her back to 250 health. Give her back her 250 shield or whatever. Make her whiplash do a little bit more damage. Bring back her stun and stuff like that. And then, just get rid of complete roll queue. It's worthless. It doesn't mean anything. I think that especially for a lot of the, the bigger kind of like plat and silver and stuff like that, a lot of people really liked goats. And I think that a lot of people, whether they admit it or not, they really enjoyed the goats as well. I enjoyed it like crazy. The aspects of the gameplay of it, battles were so long and so fun. Again, tanks wouldn't die like immediately, kind of one of those things, but kind of like right now, but they lasted a lot longer. And that's kind of like what that's the job of the tank, but not only the job of the support, right? The support can't make a mistake here, because that tank is going to be focused, no question, going to get that ult charge and get moving, right? So it's up to the support to keep that ult up, make sure that that they stay up, but also building charge yourself. And another big aspect that I think that goats had was you could lose a character or two. I think I said earlier, you could lose a character or two, but as long as you had an ult or as long as you had your couple of supports, you could still hold on to the fight pretty well, right? You couldn't give the other opponent like time to breathe or anything, move around and stuff like that. If they lost a key piece of like an area, or if they lost their grounding, like now in this game, like all you have to do is get one pick and then everybody gets to reset back into their original spot and hope it works again. But in goats, I think it was important that if you lost that space, you were still in the fight. So you had to be very careful getting back, or you just had to play where you were. With this, it's super boring. So bring that stuff back. Bring free my girl, fucking Brig. All right, Jesus Christ, all you guys have such a hate boner for her. It's ridiculous. All right, when Zen is literally charging up 5 orbs to shoot at your face, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's totally cool, guys. I promise." Yeah, all right, you've lost a lot of respect. But yeah, that's what I'd say.
Would you also say that maybe Cassidy could get his flashback, or do you think he should keep his current nade?
I'm fine with this flashbang
Yeah,
coming back.
give flashbang back. Give flashbang back. Take
Yes!
away the mini tree
Yes!
circles bomb.
You don't like the
Take it
magnetic
away.
nade that follows you all around the map?
Take it away.
No. Here's a better one. Make his nade proc on impact, but make it a slow for like 2 seconds.
Oh, that
That'd be
would be
interesting,
bad.
right?
Yeah.
So to where it's not like you're completely
That's fair.
useless, but if you are good enough with McCree, you can still get those headshots if you're playing it right. But again, if you're playing something like Sojourner or you're playing something like Amir McCree, then you can roll out of it. You have that option, which kind of gives a boost to McCree and Sojourner, those characters that can kind of dash out, or Moira, right? Which could be pretty cool. You know, it gives a little bit of a better aspect to those characters, right?
I'm also going to agree that I think Cassidy's Flash, or McCree, however you want to pronounce his name, because I know people call him different things, because, you know, McCree, if you've been here for as long as way before kind of thing. But I do agree that I think that Cassie's Flash was actually way healthier for the game than his current thing is, and it actually gave him something, because it's like a Kiriko, I guess like a Kiriko, it feels so awful when I'm playing McCree and I like throw a nade at somebody, it sticks, and then she just cleanses it. It's like, back on the other hand, it's like it's annoying to like fight against that, because it's like he's boss shots you once, he throws a nade at you and you're squishy, and unless you have Kiriko, you're done. You're dead. You're donezo. And that feels awful. But I will say that also I think that Cassidy's nade, not his nade, but his flashbang, actually kept certain things in check. It helped keep Tracer in check a little bit. And it helped keep, to a degree, Hog. And same with Reaper and everything. A lot of these heroes that some people are complaining about recently. I thought it was obviously awesome to be able to like flash, you know, a Hog out of his breather, or flash him right before I hook somebody, so it interrupts the hook and save a teammate. And it was awesome. And it was just, and it was a skill shot too. And to a degree, it was kind of a skill shot. A skill thing that mechanically thing you do. It felt earned a little bit.
That's another thing. Take away, like, Hog needs to be stunned. I don't care. Like, he should not be able to keep ulting and ulting after getting slept. And no, like, slept, hooked, he can still ult.
Oh, it's so
that's not okay.
It's so stupid.
That's not okay.
It's so stupid. I hate when they added that. I'm like, why? Why?
Well, it's because it's one tank.
Yeah.
Again, like all of these aspects we're looking at, it's like, well, and this is kind of, I guess, just the main problem that I think I see with people is that we're stuck in that Overwatch 1 feeling where it's like, well, of course Hawk shouldn't have that. There should be a stun for that. We should get rid of it, because like everybody else will have the aspect of like kind of helping him out when that stuff happens. But at the end of the day, like, he's the lone tank. That's all he has, right? A lot of the tanks in there kind of, they are supposed to be more controlling of the map and stuff like that. If he's just taken care of by a simple stun, like, he's kind of useless as a tank unless you get the one-hit wonders. And it's like, you know, they obviously had to put that in. But if they do switch to a 2-1-2 or do go back to OPQ, which, Jesus Christ, please, then yeah, I would 100% agree they need to get rid of it.
Yeah. I also will say one thing about Overwatch 2 that I'm a very big fan of. I assume DPS and support times have been infinitely better in Overwatch 1. IQ times as tank aren't bad at all. Like, I'm sitting 4 or 5 minute queues. Like, I thought tank was going to be horrendous, but it's not that bad on queue times. Like, I think if there's anything to 100% praise them is the way they did set up the 1-2-2 format. Queue times are the best they've probably been since going way back to like season 16 of Open Queue.
The only sacrifice with that is, as a GM top 500 player, you get silver players in your games.
Maybe that's part of
what their idea was for doing that competitive stuff. That was stupid. They shouldn't have tried to mix that kind of stuff together. Obviously, what they probably should have done is kept the Overwatch 1 system, which is if you scored this right here, then you'll either, depending on the games that you win, you're obviously playing with the same rank. You know, depending, you'll probably drop like a rank or two or something. Who cares, right? They shouldn't have been going like, oh no, let's get the silver players a chance, guys. I promise they'll do good. It's like, no, that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, and that's a fair point as well. For what you're saying, Spectrum, is the queue times are better, but it might also be because they're at what cost? I mean, I don't know if it's just maybe me like feeling how the games are going of late, but definitely with the range and skill, it feels like there are more instances of there is a massive support gap. I mean, obviously some people are going to gap each other in game, but it's like I've got this guy who was 2,500 at the end of Overwatch 1. Now he's like high diamond and he's facing against someone who is 4,300 DPS and like he's getting diffed. And I feel bad for the guy because why is he even in the game against him?
Yeah, what can he
Dude, that's gonna
do?
destroy his
Yeah.
morale. He's gonna be like, I fucking
I've had-
suck, dude.
Yeah, and I've
There's
had
no
so many
way.
instances like I have a teammate getting diffed or someone on the other team getting hard diffed. And it's like I feel bad for them. It's not even their fault. They don't stand a chance. It's just the
Yeah.
matchmaking's
It's
got an
crazy.
issue, and I don't get why'd they change the SR system?
don't-
I thought the SR system was good.
Yeah, I thought the old
I liked
system
it.
was way, way better than what we have now in Overwatch 2. And like, in fact, I can agree with you. Like, getting silver players, like I was in a diamond game. I was in a diamond game, all right, with other diamond players, and we had this Junkrat who was silver. He got 0-7, not even an assist. He was 0-7 the whole entire game. I wanted to pull my hair out. I wanted just to cry because yeah.
I mean, and the reason for it obviously is it's because like, you know, they're the saying what's it called, losing queue,
Losers
or
queue,
lose
losers
queue or
queue.
whatever it's
Losers
called.
queue.
Loser queue. Where basically people believe it's like, oh, I'm much better than this. Why am I? Well, it's because like I guess there's either a bunch of Smurfs or there's a bunch of this and that and the other thing that kind of basically pushes you in loser queue. They try to solve that by saying, okay, well, let's mix it up and see who comes out on top, because if you're good enough, you should be able to cover for, a silver or whatever, and the other team might even have a silver on their team, so you're kind of playing in a fair fight. The problem is that I don't think they understand that like some silvers actually do suffer from the loser queue, and some silvers are actually silver.
Mhm.
Which, I mean, I don't know if they're going to even try to fix that. That's something I don't think you can like program out. So
I'd say also kind of building off of that, having it to where you may have people of different ranks on the same team. I don't personally feel very rewarded if I barely win a game, or like I feel like, yeah, I earned it, but it's not really a good feeling if I have a guy who's outmatched on DPS, they go 10-15, and I go like 30-2 on tank, and we win a close game because I just had to hard tank div the other tank, and we just barely won. It's like I had to go absolutely just nuts for the win, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of leave just a crappy taste in my mouth because it's like it's still
it
like
is, you think about that guy, right? He's just like, man, I let my team down so fucking hard, dude. Like,
Yeah,
if
nice
I wasn't
thing
there, it
is-
would have been such an easy kill. Like, yeah. And it does. It fucking hurts because I've been there too, where it's like I'm having just a shitty ass day, and I'm sitting there, probably 3-16 or something. I'm just getting focused by everything. It's like, bro, if I just did this or that, like my team wouldn't be flaming me right now, bro. It's not right.
Yeah, and I guess another thing, maybe that happened a lot more in Overwatch 1 and I just didn't know it, but obviously we can now see everyone's kills, deaths, damage, stuff like that, and it's a quick comparison. You pull it up and I'm like, why do I have 3 times the damage and this of someone else on my team? Or I mean, even when things are going well, you look at the other team and it's like you got a clear weak link, and yeah, I mean, it could just be a bad game, but yeah, I guess it's kind of tough to say for sure. I think it's just a lot of the matchmaking, and they tried to say, okay, well, people's one of their big complaints Overwatch 1 outside of like metas lasting too long, which I think was a big problem with Overwatch 1, is it's fine to have metas, but goats I think was fun, lasted too long. Double shield, okay, I actually wouldn't call that fun, but it lasted too long as a meta.
I thought the same thing with Dive right before the Dive pair before Goats, when it was just like, with Monkey, Diva, like Tracer, Genji, Lucio, and whatever. I thought that was actually a pretty fun version of Dive. It just lasted a freaking long time. But it was a fun meta when it was, doing a thing. I think it was fun for pretty much every single role. I don't think I've heard a role that complained about it too much.
Well,
But
yeah,
I
go ahead,
also will
sorry.
say this about the whole entire, for instance, top 500 getting silvers in the games, or even diamond players getting silvers in the game. It's like, okay, well, if we can't, because I would love to queue with some friends. Like, I think the only reason why I have an alt account or a Smurf really is to queue with my friends who are like in bronze and silver. Because, I mean, they're still my friends, and I still want to play with them and everything. And they want to play ranked with me, and they want to grind ranked, but they don't, they want another person to go with them. But it's okay. What if we were to have it where, like, in CS:GO matchmaking, they actually have it like this, where, yes, there is a limit But if you full stack, there is actually no limit as long as you full stack. What would you guys think of that?
Kind of like Valorant. Is that what you said?
Valorant and CS, yeah. I haven't
Mhm.
really queued with Valorant really in a long
I
time.
I think that would be fair because there have been a lot of times where I've like been, a solo player with a 4 stack on my team, or an Overwatch 1 solo player with a 5 stack, and that's just a recipe for disaster. So, and I've also been on the other end where I'm in a 4 stack, and they're like, "Oh my god, why do we have this? This player that obviously." Be in this lobby. So yeah, it's either like it's all or nothing. Like duos, trios. Don't leave like an odd person out.
Yeah, get rid of the mute button, okay? Unless like some hideous stuff happens, okay? All right, and like get rid of like you should have VC 100% open. I don't care if you're hot miking. I don't care if something crazy is going on in the back, all right? Or it's somebody's birthday, okay? I want to hear everybody on the mic. Even if you don't say anything, then I can blame you for the loss. I don't want this thing where it's like, oh man, it's just like I don't have a mic, or oh man, I just don't like VC because I get super shy. Then don't play ranked, okay? We don't have time. We just don't have time. All right. I want to get dubs, and communication leads to dubs. So communicate. That's it.
I will also agree. I do think the ping system definitely helped alleviate some of the issues of like communication, but I don't see everybody using the ping system. I love the ping system. It's so nice to be, hey, look, there's a exact location. Instead of saying, oh, she's up there somewhere or whatever, right? I think, for instance, people say, hey, look, there's a widow at this location where I pointed. That's the nice thing to have. But I do think that both I think all profiles should be public when you enter competitive queue. I think having to guess what heroes you play is so ridiculous, because it's like, yeah, we're trying to build up a team together, and if you're not in voice chat or something or whatever, or you're trying to hide it, it's like, bro, I get it. People don't want to be judged for their stats, but your stats aren't the only thing. And I don't care. And personally, I know I'm not the best player, but I don't give a crap. My profile is open for anybody to see, whether or not it's quick play or not. I think that having it's just like, yeah, I get it. Some people might feel a little bit, a little shy, but it's like, listen, to your competitive game. If you're playing to win, you need to have your profile open and be forced in voice chat. I think, at least in the same voice channel, I would say.
Sorry.
Even if you don't say anything, you can
Yeah.
like just hear your teammate, right?
Even if like even if they like keep their private profiles, I think it should be like old Overwatch. Like there was like a time and point where it would show like your most played heroes and then like the win percentage you would have. Yeah. There should be like a hover thing at least. Like if they're not gonna say anything, or if they're gonna keep their profile private, at least let me know like what they play so I can play around it. As for the talking and voice thing, that's something completely different. I think that's a completely different discussion, because I'm someone who, I listen and I ping. I'm not necessarily going to talk in the voice channel, but that's like completely different reasons, Same with the profile thing. Like, I don't mind if people see my top 3 heroes, but if they look at my profile, hear my voice, and see like, oh, this person has a lot of mercy hours, they're not a mercy, like GG, that's just completely different story. But I do understand where you're coming from that aspect.
Would you say that the lack of would you say that when you being able to not be in voice chat, do you think has helped you? I know that sexism has been a big talk in Overwatch before. Do you think that you've had that issue where you feel like, if I didn't have the ability to leave the voice chat, I would just be harassed all the time for being a female or a mercy player or whatever?
I mean, in a sense, like, I don't know, it really depends, because for the most part, people know like who I am, they know what heroes I play, and I don't get it as much. But if I'm on an alt account, like I've done unranked to GMs, I've done like a 30 FPS to GM on Mercy before, and I had my profile open, I just didn't join voice channel, because even if you're in the voice channel, you'll get things like, oh, why can't you swap Mercy? And it's like, I have my profile open, I have a name that literally says Mercy only. It's stuff like that where you just don't want to hear it, and it's like, I'm sorry, but like, I have a 70 win rate. I think I can get away with not being in voice channel and having an account with this profile open. You see what I play around it. And that goes to say, like, you do the same thing for other people, like I'll get Bastion one tricks. Their name is literally Bastion only. Their profile Bastion only, and people are like flaming them for playing Bastion. Like, just play around it. Like, it's very obvious like what they're doing. Like, you just have to learn to play around it.
I almost made a far one tray account just to see how I could get far, but I never did it. But
Thank God.
Oh man.
Also, I will say with the voice chat thing, because I'm not gonna lie, I've probably been one person, at least back on Overwatch 1, to where I would get upset if someone would not join voice, because I'm the guy who types, "Hey, voice chat, please," and I'm
That's
like,
understandable.
I've gotten away from that though, because I've started to realize, at least with the ping system, and I'm not saying like, oh, if you're not in voice, you have to ping. But I mean, I've also started to have better experiences in the 5v5 way. I mean, for me as a player, it's easiest for me to win because I call out so much and I don't use ping, which I probably should, but at least with my setup, I don't have a lot of binds. So finding somewhere for ping with my controller mouse is kind of tough. But
Yeah.
I've started to find it as like less than an issue because as long as someone's out of chat, like if they're trying and maybe they make a ping now and then, like I honestly don't mind that as much. I will also say with the private profile thing, before I forget, one thing that would be cool, because I have heard some people say this, and not everyone, but I wish there was an option for team only, because there's private, friends only, group only, all. What about team only? Because maybe you
Yeah.
don't want the enemy team to see what you're playing, but you want your team to know what you're playing. I don't know how they haven't added that yet. Like that should be an option, just period. Whether having private profile is an option or not. Why team view only is not there, I don't get.
Or at least a checklist of people who can say you have a checkbox for like team or a checkbox for friends, but I mean not one for public or whatever. And of course there'd be like a hierarchy or whatever. That'd be kind of nice to have.
Yeah,
I
like,
agree.
Yeah,
That'd be
like
cool.
I'd be fine with I keep my profile open because at least if I'm on my main, people know I'm probably playing a Rappsure Reinhardt. No
It's not
big
gonna
shock
matter.
there.
It's not gonna matter.
It's not gonna matter. People know who I am. They know
That's-
what I'm playing, kind of thing.
But are you
But
asking like if we should be able to see like the opponent's career profiles and stuff?
I'd say for at least comp, like I'd be fine if you say for everything. I don't want to get an ed. Okay, I go and look at the enemy team when I go into comp because I'm curious what they play right off the bat. But I think it would be maybe a good idea, or at least something to think about for the game. If you say, okay, I'm public profile, except for if I'm in comp, then the other team can't see my profile. Which maybe you can say, oh, well, then cheaters can hide easier or this and that. Like, yeah, I guess. But for normal game, I think it could be a pretty good idea just where it's like, just your team can see. But then again, like, I know some people who will look at a profile and then they'll just flame the person for the profile. And if they at least kind of communicate and say like, hey, I play blank and blank. Because I think that'd be fine just to get a general idea of what they play. So like, I'm kind of on the fence. I used to just I still think adding private profiles as this thing was a bad idea from the get-go, but I still kind of see some positives to it in a sense of, well, at least the enemy team doesn't know what you're doing. And if you are at least playing what you're good at or communicate to your team, hey, I'm going to be playing this or this, and they can just trust you and say, okay, I'm going to trust the person to play that and do an okay job. At least for me, if the other team's all private profiles, unless if I recognize a person, which at least if you go to a rank that's more, populated, like Diamond or something where there's a lot of players in Diamond, you're not going to recognize every single person in there by name. Then it might give you an edge at the start. And I know I'm throwing a lot of things in, but one other thing I would suggest going with the ult charge thing of you can recover up to 30% that I just thought of. Maybe take that away for tank to where tanks have to go back down to 0 because tank is so heavy counterpick. Because I still think when tanks are semi-balanced, it's just you counterpick the tank, and there's got to be more of a downside to counterpicking, at least for that specific role. I think DPS and support it's fine because there's no like true counterpicks. I think unless it's you have a Pharah against Junk Sim and the Junk Sim swap to Sojourn Ash or Widow Ash or something like that.
Well, yeah, there's obviously hard counters with DPS. I think the career profile thing in general, I can understand friends or like people on your team having it just no matter what. The opponent should have no clue whatsoever because it's one of those things you talk about advantage, but it's like that's kind of what you're trying to take away from at the beginning is that advantage. Where it's like you need to be playing without any kind of bias, and if you are playing with that thing, then it's going to lead to a game that I don't think anybody really likes to play, which is counterpicking, right? You talked about it earlier, lastly. And then the tank kind of thing that you were talking about, I disagree that they should get set to 0 because I kind of, or at least the way that I kind of want to see this game move forward is kind of like if we were to pass a law or something like that, it needs to try to be applied equally. And I don't think that making preferential treatment or distreatment to a certain role, I think is going to lead a lot of people to either go against it or switch away from it, right? Like you guys were, or you were talking about how the the game times and stuff like that, getting into a game was a lot quicker. It's because a lot of those DPS players decided that, well, since all of these things are getting a huge damage boost or getting a lot of control boosts, I'll just switch over there and have a good time, right? It's basically playing DPS with a higher health, right? I mean, it would probably have the same effect here, which is like, well, wait, why in that? Why would I play tank when I can literally just go play Bastion or something like that and not have to deal with losing 30% of a ultimate, recovery? It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think, and I get your point. I think part of it, to me, I just feel like there might need to be a specific thing for that because, and maybe I'm just getting sick and tired of it, but every single time to me when I've seen, a tank v tank, which I mean, it's great for me because I take advantage of it, but first fight, if you die and your team kind of gets wiped, you're probably 20 to 30%. And it's like, okay, I mean, I get, and I kind of like an aspect of the counter pick game of, oh, they've got blank on tank. This tank counters them. I'll keep the percentage. There is no downside swap. And you might say, well, that's the right thing to do. And then the other person, after a fight or two might need to swap to try and counter that. Or if they are, a one trick or very confident on just that one hero, then they might just stick it and might say, well, if they aren't going to counter pick back, then tough luck. But I guess I'm not sure of an exact solution, but I've had too many games where not as much of late because Orisa all of a sudden now doesn't get countered by anything. So I kind of feel safe to just stay Orisa. But back when it was like, they have a hog, I'm going to go Orisa. Oh, they swapped to Zarya. Okay, I'm going to go Ryan because Lucio was hard meta at the start of Overwatch 2. So I felt like Ryan with speed did great against Zarya. And then it's like, oh, after that, well, now they go back to hog. Like, okay, I'm going to go back to Orisa. Oh, they swapped it. Just, I'd have games where I would swap 5-6 times. I wouldn't even need too many ultimates, but as long as I'm picking the tank, that's the clear counter. There wasn't enough downside to where I've had games where it just gets frustrating. But maybe that's...
No, and I can understand the frustration of like, well, I walk out the door, and I have to go switch tanks, because I guess in 5 seconds it pops up. But it's one of those things where, like, I don't think every single tank has this problem. What tanks do you think have that problem where it's like, okay, yeah, they do need a reset or they do need like something affecting them? Because like, is it just whenever the tanks are like competitive at the time need to have that effect on them, or because like, yeah.
Good question. I would say certain tanks, Doomfist and Hog. I get Hog can be still pretty good. I think if you're Doom or Hog and you're facing Ursa, if I got to face Hog and Doomfist all day long, I feel like I'd be like holding top 20, top 30, just period. Because that would be some of the easiest crap in the world, especially Doom, which I get some people can maybe play around that, but I feel like Hog and Doom just flat out get countered by Orisa, although Hog is still pretty strong in general, that if a really good Hog can just avoid the Orisa, they can still get tons of value in.
Okay.
But I guess specifically like Doomfist. If I'm Orisa v Doom, I win.
Like, okay. Well, no, I'm not talking about like the counters. I'm talking about because you want like the tank roll to lose that 30% buff or that 30% ult charge. But like not every ult from a tank is obviously the same, and there are ones that are
okay. That's fair. I see what you're saying.
Right?
Yeah, there's certain tank ults that are much better than other tank ults.
Right, because they did this with Mercy, right? Because Mercy got her ult like way too fast, right? So, I'm sorry, it was way too slow. So didn't they boost it by like, or was it way too fast? Am I misremembering?
I know that the speed was either too much or too much. I know there was one point it was like Mercy.
Right, but they like boosted it or decreased it by like 5 or 10%, right? And she got her ult faster, right? But which made her more competitive on the scene, right? Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, Ryan's ult is, especially since we're losing a lot of shields, or shields just do not exist with a single tank op, then Ryan should have, less percentage per damage she takes, whatever. Orisa is really, really powerful right now, and her ult is just unbelievably amazing, especially without shield. Then, like, she should lose like a 5% whatever reduction and stuff like that. But I don't think this kind of like, when it comes to this kind of change, I don't think sweeping, especially when coming to ults, I think this kind of sweeping, you know, program or change is going to be helpful.
Yeah, that's fair. You got me second guessing my own point now with that, where it's like, I think that could be an idea, but I definitely see the downsides to just getting rid of the 30%. Because I'm like, well, maybe if you get rid of the 30%, there'd be less counterpick. But then you say, well, if you do that with some tanks, it wouldn't be that big a deal. But, you know, if you're swapping to a Zarya, like that 30% is going to matter a lot more than, you know, Doom ult. Which, I mean, Doom ult is still good to get out, but I think, you know, Grab is, in my opinion, Grab's best tank ult game
It
still.
has
If you,
the most value, probably, what you can say.
That is true, and I think you're right, because I think I would have to say, and it sucks just for Overwatch 2, I think Doomfist ult is one of the worst, right? So hitting him with that 30% like loss or 30% loss is really big. I even think that I believe that Doomfist should actually have his percentage of ult charge actually increased per damage he takes. Because not only is he just doesn't take a whole lot of damage really, but yeah, he does. He super relies a lot of his controlling aspects besides those just two abilities really rely on his ult with that slow aspect. So I think having his kind of chance, and after those two abilities, he has no backup whatsoever, right? He's basically fucked. So having him get that ult back a little bit quicker can help him in a lot of different situations where it's like, well, shit, I've already ran through all my abilities. I'm basically in the middle of the fucking field because I'm stupid. Well, I can use my ult to get out of here and actually add something to the game, add something to help the team.
also, would I be able to pose a question, both of you guys, because I guess to everyone else here, because I'm curious, what would you think of Overwatch 1 in a 6v6 format if, you know, without over buffing all the tanks, that they just removed a lot of the shields and just tone those way, way down to where, you know, Orisa no shield, and at most you would have one shield?
I don't think that would be bad. I think in order for that to work out really well, honestly, is as long as they if they can balance the DPS damage and the tank damage to the best of their ability and then lower the healing that the supports do, I think you would have fair game. Like lower the healing overall, balance the damage from both tank and DPS side. I think that would make a pretty smooth games. Like implying that Widow and Sojourn and that there's no one shots, you know, no shield, no one shot. I feel like that'd be fair game. Lower the support healing. I think that'd be okay.
I would say that I would agree to a degree. I think that one thing that I would agree to a degree. I would say that I think with Widow and Hanzo can maybe one shot, but I think that you have to make them very punishable, and you have to give them you have to make it harder for them to get those windows. But it's like for something like I think that for the most part, actually, I would say that in terms of tank shields and everything, I think we've got rid of that. With just the reworks of a lot of these tanks alone, I think we've already done that. Like Orisa doesn't really have a shield. I mean, sure, she has the little spin jolly thing with Jiggy, but it's not like, oh, I have to burn through this shield and then through this shield and then through this shield. But even then, I would say that even with some of the stuns that were removed from the game, I think that it's possible to do it in 6v6 with 2-2-2 still. Even because there's a lot less uptime for those characters of just like, oh, screw your fuck your damage kind of thing. You know, you can't get any value from it. But I would also say that if you were to bring back some of the stuns, like Brig Bash, for instance, or Cassidy's stun, I think to avoid, having players with that issue of getting perma-stunned, just chain stunned, every freaking second, like how it was in Overwatch 1, I think they should add a mechanic that's essentially an internal clock, to where if you've been stunned a couple times, you cannot be stunned for a certain amount of time. So you can't just get chain stun over and over and over again, because that's just not fun to play against.
But didn't they do that in Overwatch, late term Overwatch 1, where it's like you couldn't be affected by two different sleeps at the same time, or it's two different stuns at the same time, right? Like if you're getting Ryan charged, you couldn't right as you were getting charged get slept.
Well, it's not even just the fact that it was during the duration of each stun. It's also right afterwards. Like you can get
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
you can get slept. And then as soon as the thing ends, you can just get pinned or something, or you get Roadhog hooked or something, or trapped. I mean, again, trap isn't a stun; it's just a movement penalty thing, Majiggy, but it's not like a full on stun like like Brig Bash or whatever, right? It's probably the hardest form of CC kind of thing, right? But I wouldn't think it would be an issue with like soft CC. If it was like a boop or whatever, I wouldn't even touch that. I think that just for the stuns themselves, I would just have it where it's okay if also with like honest sleep does last longer than a couple seconds, so I think that honest sleep you'd have to also kind of like maybe adjust it for honest sleep specifically, maybe for honest sleep kind of thing, because like even if you get slept at all, you're out of the fight for much longer from a cast flash or a break stun. You're out of the fight for a few seconds completely, and if somebody didn't touch you, that is.
So, and that's what I kind of like agree with, and that's why I think that going back to Overwatch 1 and then just having basically 1 to 0 shields is one of the worst ideas, because that's kind of like, not only are you limiting like again, this is why I really like 2-1-2 and having those shields kind of level, is as a support or DPS character, it opens up the field for you. One of the most like lovely feeling in the world, okay, is having a nice, beautiful, big, Berkey Ryan man sitting with his shield right there. Oh God! And then you get to look at the Widow, then the fucking face through that blue shield. Oh,
and just say fuck you.
Beautiful. Just say fuck you and just end it, right? And
you be the condom. You become the condom essentially.
Yeah, true. And that's what I'm saying. It's like that's the big thing. Is like that's what I really like about shields, and why I never really had too much of a problem with the shield meta. Is it opened up a lot of the map to play where you wanted to play without having that feeling of like, oh well, I have to peek this shit, right? I have to go back to CS:GO. And I think that if we were to go to Overwatch 1 with a 2-2-2 or 6v6, whatever, with no shield and giving back all of those stuns, I mean, again, like the reason Brig was kind of really down in the dumps for a while is because her shield couldn't go through other shields while she was trying to stun, right? So like shields were unbelievably important to try and stop certain stuns or sleeps or slows or whatever. And taking that aspect away of saying like, oh, well, now you're just kind of emboldening everybody to play. We got to play Anna. We've got to play May. We got to play. We have to play Brig, and we have to play. I'm sorry, Cassidy, right? Because we just got to go full stun comp, and they can't stop us basically. Yeah. So I mean, that's why I think shields, like, again, unpopular opinion, I guess. Shields definitely need to be boosted, no question. And with the 2-1-2, that can definitely happen.
I would also agree to a certain. I also agree to a certain degree, because I remember when double shield and everything was with hard mid, like with the Rissa and Sig and everything. Even though the shields were like dumpster, like the shields themselves, the cooldown of each of the shield were dumpster. Like, even Ryan's shield was dumpster for whatever reason. But it's like they were still double barrier, not because of the shields themselves, because of the cooldowns that Orisa and Sig had. They don't just have just shields. They also had like the fortify. They also had the suck and everything. And that, kind of, and plus they had their whole of uptime. I think for like Ryan, for him to be able to like attack, he has to drop a shield. For him to be able to stop attacking, he has to put up a shield, kind of thing. So he could just could just spam, and he used both of his anti, the suck and his shield if he wanted to, and that just made a lot of high uptime for those characters where nothing can get through. So I don't think it was the shields themselves. I think it was just a lot of the parts of their kits, of Orisa's and Sig's kits, that kind of made it frustrating, at least from a playing against a tank perspective. But of course, when it comes to support, she also has something like BAP and Brig, and with Lamp and everything, because Lamp was essentially like a pseudo third shield, and it was not fun to play against for any reason. I'm like, just anything would survive. Like, no matter how many times like you shoot at somebody, if that lamp is there and it's behind a corner and you can't shoot it, you're fucked. You can't burn it down or anything. And it's up for a decent amount of time. And that being said, I think that if they're going to do that, I think also the duration of lamp should be lowered as well. But I will say that there is a lot less shields to worry about anyways, because like Orisa has been reworked, etc. and whatnot. And so I do think that I would be fine with going back to 6v6 with like 2-2-2 or something, as long as there has been an internal cooldown to be able to stop chain stuns, as well as there's a lot more downtime for both the tanks and supports that have tremendous, powerful anti-damage abilities, kind of thing.
The chain stun doesn't bother me as long as there's like an output, right? As long as you're playing right, chain stun shouldn't like mess with you, unless we're taking away the things that like stop
Right.
that, right? Which is shields, which is kind of like bubbles, which is that kind of stuff. The immunes I thought was a really good idea coming from Kiriko. And that's kind of a new aspect where it's like, okay, we're not getting like blocked, we're not getting stunned, out of it, or we're not getting anti, we're like immune to damage, right? We're just untouchable, which I think is really cool. But I think they kind of overdid it a little bit, I guess, with the healing, but that's besides the point. It's just more of like, it's those kinds of aspects of the game that should be introduced more and not taking away things that were, that were situational, right? Important.
All right, I know would. Yeah, I would say that I'd be fine with 6v6 as long as they remove, at least reduce the amount of stuns and just overall uptime of tanks, and especially like tank cooldowns or like the big ones, I should say. What are you guys' thoughts? Fudgy, what about you? What about you?
At least just with just trying to think, just my thoughts with what exactly of that.
So what I mentioned is that I would be fine with the 2-2-2 coming back kind of thing, as long as they reduced they would give a mechanic to reduce the amount of chains you've seen you would essentially be up against, as well as maybe reducing some of the uptimes. For instance, because of with Orisa and Sigma, they had a lot of anti-damage uptime there. They had huge uptime with their abilities.
Yeah, I would think I would agree with that. I would say definitely if we were to ever go back to 6v6, don't let it to where there can be fights. I mean, I'm fine with a longer fight, but I've had fights that have probably lasted a minute and a half, 2 minutes, which would be fine if they were a bit more dynamic. But even, I mean, earlier on Double Shield, when it was a 1500 health Sigma shield and 900 Orisa shield, now granted, they got that fixed a bit by reducing the amount of shield. But even in the later part, but like talking about just that earlier part there were fights where you would just be shooting the shield the entire time, and you would occasionally break through, and you'd have a little bit of time to try and find a kill, but usually it would be okay. They'll hide for a half second, come back out with their shields, and I mean, that kind of just goes. I mean, I liked Double Shield to a degree on certain maps because I think it was okay on certain maps, but it was still it was just insufferable when it's a long fight of the same exact thing. Now, if there's a long fight, kind of going back to the point with goats, where you're at least engaged and you're going in and you're brawling, those kind of long fights were a lot better than the shooting the shield, shooting the shield. Oh, it broke. Oh, there's another shield. Shoot it. Oh, it broke. Okay, we have a second to try and kill. Oh, nope, shield's back.
Yeah.
Like those long fights.
Best.
Those long fights, if they could get rid of those by, less health shields or just even having the current updates. Like I think simply getting rid of Orisa's shield, going for an Orisa player, getting rid of her shield, period, would have been a great change, I think, for Overwatch 1, because Orisa double shield with, I mean, mostly Sig, but sometimes I've seen Orisa Rhine in some ranks where people would run Orisa Rhine and run in hard on people. It was not fun to play against.
Hot.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say is that that's what I liked the most about it. Again, I guess I'm a shields guy because I went to double shields. I was like, okay, you guys had a problem with double shields. Everybody had a problem. What do? You got rid of Orisa shield. Okay, so it's gone. Now what's the problem? Why are we still getting rid of shields, and why did we make this big change with tanks, right? If the main problem was, double shield, Orisa, Sigma, super no fun, whatever, then it's like, okay, just get rid of Orisa shield. Boom, you got it. You did great, right? But no, we had to go change everything, right? Boost the damage of all the tanks, make their abilities on pretty relatively low cooldowns, and then just hope to God that everybody behind those tanks would be okay. Which, again, when at least in my experiences when dealing with support, either I'm 10 miles away from the fight and hoping to God that they don't have some kind of Reaper or Winston. Go ahead. Thank you. No problem. I'm so sorry about that. Or right, you're playing Brig and you're hoping to God that there's a Mercy on your back so that you don't die immediately, right? again, Brig is worthless. You're hoping to God that Anna is okay because at least they boosted her damage. But again, you got to have somebody peeling for her, which only takes more people out of the team fight. Like peeling was okay when it came to 6v6, but when it came to 5v5, like peeling just becomes unbelievably difficult. But I don't know.
Yeah, I would also say to a degree it might be an overreaction by some people. Like with Double Shield, I'll be honest, when it was toward the tail end of Overwatch 1 with the 600 health Orisa shield and 700 health, I think it was 700 or 900 health Sig shield, whatever that was. It wasn't that bad. If Double Shield started at that, I'm pretty sure people wouldn't hate it so much. Like Brig right now is dead. She's bad right now. And people are happy about it because of how unbelievably annoying initial Brig was to so many people. And when Double Shield was at a point where it's like, yeah, it can still be strong. It was more of just a spam comp toward the end of Overwatch 1. People absolutely hated it because they had to deal with multiple seasons of 1500 health and 900 health shield, Double Shield, which was unbearable. And I think
PTSD, man.
I think it's a lot of the PTSD where they'll be like, okay, just destroy these people or destroy these heroes.
Yep. Destroy these characters.
And they'll kind of overdo it. Where I know we were also saying with Overwatch 2, having small updates wouldn't be too bad. Like small updates, small tweaks. Don't just, completely blow up the hero. I think they've actually done a really good job with some reworks like Sim back in the day and Tor back in the day.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
man.
God.
Those are turret. Level 3 turret.
Bring back armor.
Gosh.
Bring back armor. I want my armor
those
back.
were meme heroes. They were not good.
I want my armor back. I want to be able to throw 5 armor packs into the corner, and then when the Ryan is fucking 5 health and dying, he can walk into that corner and get 300 health instantly.
Honestly,
I want it back.
Honestly, I don't mind the idea of one, like maybe 25 or 50 HP armor shield, but one max. It should be. Honestly, it should be in a sense, how Moira, she right clicks to charge back her healing back up. It should be something like that. Like you should have to work for it in order. It shouldn't be a cooldown.
Dude, again, and I get because we're still PTSD again. We got to get past PTSD with Overwatch 1 because whenever we had that when Brig gave armor, right, and we gave it to Tracer, so she had 200 health, so she wasn't just a one-shot easy kill. I totally get that. But you guys are a bunch of crybaby fucks,
I will say this,
okay?
though. I will say... Okay.
The reason...
I agree with this.
Go ahead. Man, I was about to go on a rant.
I think we're going with this, but I agree with you. I honestly think that, yes, it was awesome to see more sheer mechanics being rewarded in Overwatch 2, but we've overcredited way too far. We've corrected way too far with the sheer mechanics stuff for Overwatch, in my opinion.
Pendulum swing, dog. And again, it's like... because I think I brought this up to you, Rapp, a little while ago. We have like DPS supports when it comes to like Moira or Brig or something like that. We have like Anna can be, I guess. Yeah, you're right. But and then we have kind of like more supportive tanks or DPS tanks, right? When it comes to that kind of stuff, that kind of help people out. Like we have Junker Queen, which is more of like a support tank, and then we have DPS tanks like Hog and shit. But we don't have a support DPS that actually gives and contributes, except for I guess Soldier's like healing circle, but like that's it. And that has like what, a 12-second or 10-second cooldown time.
And even it's not the healing. The healing on that isn't great either. It's
and then I guess we have teleport, but like, dude, who gives it? Like, she's gonna break that shit right as she get onto the second story anyway. She doesn't give a fuck about you. She's literally giving you the middle finger as she brings it up. Like, Tor giving fucking shield would be the coolest thing on the planet, right? Because like, not only would kind of his turret giving more kind of like situational ground and stuff like that, or covering certain areas, but like the ability to help out your other team, like kind of put you more of in a skillful place, but put your head more on a swivel instead of just throw turret, shoot in the direction 50 yards away and hope to God you get higher than 30% accuracy. Here's turret again. Like, it's just boring.
Yeah. I will say this, that I think when there was something like Brig, it was like this peeler support, which is what I think a lot of support players want. They want a peeler support that can help defend their other support. And I think that, yes, I think the idea was nice. Having this little paladin thing was kind of good. I think that one thing they could have done better, if they wanted to keep both the stun and the whip shot, and maybe the high, the 50 damage on the, on the shield, I guess, is to reduce the amount of her AoE healing. I think the burst AoE healing is also one of the things that many people did not like about Overwatch 1 towards the end of it. I think that we also need to bring that down significantly, and I think that, yeah, Citrus could have worked. I think that, you know what? I also remember back when Sim was considered to be a support when Overwatch
Wasn't
first
she in
came
the
out.
support role?
Yeah,
Or- oh,
she was
in the defense
she was
role.
in the support role. She
Yeah.
she didn't like heal anybody. She gave people personal shields, is what happened, and she also had a turret still and everything.
Shield
Oh,
generator.
yeah.
Shield
So-
generator, yeah.
But
Shield generator, and then it
Or
was shield
TP.
generator.
That
or
was actually
teleport,
kind of a
right?
cool concept,
Mhm.
like one of the only alts where you could pick between two different alts to use.
But-
I'm beginning to
Yeah.
think they
Well,
have
that's what I was
shield
expecting from-
generator.
Oh
That's
my
one of my
gosh.
favorite
they have
Junkrat
a
voice lines.
shield generator.
That's one of my favorite things.
Actually, no, what they could do
I
if
s-
they wanted.
No, and that's what I thought they were
You
going
know
to do.
what? You know what they could do
Oh,
if they
go
wanted
ahead.
DPS that was also kind of like a bit of a pseudo support. And what? What if back in like Overwatch 1 they had that experimental patch where the Sims turrets, instead of doing damage, it healed teammates. That was actually kind of fun.
That was kind of cool.
That was
cool
cool.
concept.
I think that could actually potentially work for Symmetra if she was in the DPS carry. It would give a way to support your team, but you would still be able to do damage in other ways. But the turns wouldn't be like a person to fight against in terms of like, oh, I'm wrong. I'm gonna have to walk through this truck. Oh, there's a turret over there. Oh, there's a turret over there, or something like that. And then it's like, okay, you know what? Just make it heal your teammates. Give them a way to like fall back, heal. So make it like, you know what? And it would work just like the dispenser from Engineer in TF2. There we go. There we go.
Well, and it was that's what I thought they were going to do with Echo once they got rid of Sim's ult, I guess.
Mhm.
Is they were going to make her like her ult was going to be there's like this area or whatever that would give shields and like a little bit of a movement speed boost. And she'd be more of like a support kind of flying character. But yeah, they made her another DPS, which is so awesome. Like, but what did they say they were going to do now? Is it was one tank, one support, and then two DPS, or is it two
No,
tank?
no, the next
one
two
support,
heroes.
one
They
DPS?
said the next. They confirmed the next two heroes are going to be supports. Next
Oh,
two heroes
okay.
will be supports. Yeah.
Hell yeah, I'm waiting.
They should do that. That's one thing I've always found so weird. And I kind of get it for Overwatch 1 because there were, at least with role queue, there were two in each role. And I get that maybe there were the highest quantity of DPS players. Why are there so many more DPS than supports, at least as of right now? Like, I get why, again, because that's how it was in Overwatch 1. But on Overwatch 2, it's like, you got two spots to fill out, and you got half the roster size for supports versus DPS. Like, DPS have a lot to pick from supports. Now, granted, they are releasing stuff, and as you guys said, they're going to be releasing a couple more. But
Well, if you do
I
remember,
mean,
Fudge, the DPS wasn't just damage; it was both offense and defense. Despite like,
Oh,
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember
they had
this-
offense and defense, which
Offense, defense, and support. Yeah.
I remember this
It was
specifically
awesome.
because I remember like going into lobbies where I'd pick Widow on attack. If people were like, you can't pick Widow, she's a defense hero. I'm like,
She's a defense hero.
I was
Yeah.
like, she's actually better on attack than she was on defense.
Yeah, you don't even know, dude.
the only ones that were defense heroes, I would say, would be Sim and Torb.
Torb.
Yeah.
Torb for sure.
And
Sim, I'd
They
say, was
tried
really
so
good.
hard to copy
And Bastion.
TF2 at
I'd
the
say
beginning.
Bastion.
It
I'd
was
say Bastion
funny
because
as
Bastion was pretty immobile in
Bastion.
his turret form. So I'd say maybe.
Yeah, oh
Okay,
yeah, because he
yeah.
couldn't move. He couldn't move.
True.
Unless
true.
you're on a payload map, he was pretty much a defense hero.
Yeah. And I don't think that would be a terrible thing if they. I get they're trying to get to a point, especially with all the reworks. I mean, the reworks to Bastion, Sim, and Torb. They want ideally any hero to be played at any point. And although I like those changes, part of me also wonders, was it a good idea to have, maybe people like Bastion, Sim, and Torb at their best value defense on 2CP, where they just make capping the second point so unbelievably difficult. Like, have Sim on Temple of Anubis with a shield generator in that back hallway, and good luck trying to get to that. And all the fights are basically on point.
Or when the
Like,
teleporter lasted for ages. The teleporter used to last for ages.
Oh yeah, like you could have that. Like, get the teleporter, defend first point. If you get enough for a teleporter, you basically have a few instant respawns to for your first fight or two after.
Mhm.
If you happen to lose 2 or 3 people. And again, that's one thing I just think of. It's like, I like that they are making it to where Torb and Sim can kind of now be played in any sense. But it was also kind of cool to be like, oh, Sim and Torb are extremely niche and realistically can only be played in a couple scenarios, like defending 2CP, which is, I still think, strongest point. But then you'd have people trying to force it on attack, and then it'd get annoying. So I get why they did it, but I almost kind of liked the niche aspect of that.
Mhm.
Except they did also have like Torb, I think, way too. Even on defense, he was still kind of. You'd have to keep his turret alive to be even okay.
So speaking of 2CP, they actually got something in the chat asking, hey, how can we, if we were to ever bring back 2CP, how would we be able to do it? I think that if you're ever bringing back 2CP as an alternate mode, you have to have for them because I think the maps were extremely claustrophobic as crap. Like the chokes were so claustrophobic and everything, and the alternate routes were just not that great because you'd be able to see them from the main choke point anyways. So it's like I think what they could do is they could either a combination of making more routes maybe other than just the three routes and whatnot. And I think that there shouldn't be any like the three separate thirds where that would count towards a tick or whatever. I think they should just make it where because that came from TF2. TF2 what TF2 does it, and I think there's one reason why I think TF2 worked well in TF2 is that also that there was no oh, if you got a third, it wouldn't. No, if you did not even get the whole entire point, it would slowly go back down, kind of thing, the whole entire way. And it also increased the cap rate of the point. And what I'd also do, but again, I also would say that since tanks have shields, they have a lot of ways to block damage or absorb damage, kind of thing. You would have to have more routes than just the three. But that's just me. What I would say. And also something like Paris. Man, attack on Paris second point was awful because it took ages to walk to second.
Yeah, at least for me, I wouldn't be upset with 2CP coming back if there were a few things. Which one thing that was a problem is because there were so few choke points. Big one for me is Hanamura first point. Got a single choke, you put a shield in front of that, it's painful to try to get through.
Maywall.
Maywall. Oh my gosh. Run Arissa Sim May. And just say, well, good luck passing.
Good luck, have fun, right?
Hanamura was the worst one for that. Again, because there's too small. I mean, I guess you could TP around from the left side, but again, that is such a small choke point. You're just
it forces you to pick Sim.
Yeah, and it's the same problem that Paris had on its first initial. Is sure, you can, there's the choke, sure, and there's that second story. You can go right. But it always leads to that, the second story where the fucking team is, right? You can go left, but you're losing this entire spot here. Oh, you can go up the staircase. Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
An easy fix for that would be to open that left door and go in rather than go into the open, I think, and have a third point where there's cover, and you're forced to rotate. I think that would be good.
That little tunnel to the right there is fucking pointless. There's no reason for it. It's just there. Oh, it was worthless, man. Just make it open up at that spot, or make it curl around to where you can get to that second story easier. That'd be pretty cool, because then you can't just sit there on that second area and just shoot down basically play bash and turret. It would have been so much more fun, because there would be no way you would have to either drop down to that level there to shoot through that tunnel, or you would just have to engage them in that room, which could actually have a pretty fun little fight there. There's not really a whole lot of close combat kind of areas, but that would have been really cool. But I don't know. Fuck it.
I also think another issue that I think that both First Point and even Horizon First Point both had, both Paris and Horizon, is that the high ground advantage that the defenders have was actually pretty insane. More on Horizon than on Paris, but having that high ground is pretty big. And then that got inverted on Horizon second point. The attackers had all the high ground, and then all the defenders were left with nothing for the most part. And it felt awful to play that. Yeah.
I will also say, and this is probably still unpopular, but I mean, given the shields and how First Point played on most maps, for me, Volskaya was my favorite, because First Point, you actually had areas that you could move in different, you could take high ground right, you could go push point right. You had areas to push. I still didn't like playing Volskaya, but I liked how it wasn't just a single choke. And I also think Horizon Lunar was the second best, because after the rework, because First Point, you could take right side high ground or left side high ground. You had to take high ground, but if one's holding right side high ground, you go left side high ground. You have tons of cover to get there. Easy enough. But
and what was it? It's Anubis also was pretty cool, because even though there was that strong choke in the mid that you could shoot down that lane,
you could get through.
You could get through to the right side, and obviously there was a lane there. And once they shifted over there, or if they kind of had to back up because they were playing more of a range comp, you could take left and go through that room there, which kind of created that very close range kind of room battle, which I really liked. I really loved having fights in that kind of small room there. It was so cool, especially as a Brig player, right? Free Brig.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, Brig was amazing. Oh man, in that place, all I had to do was press shift and hold left, but it's awesome.
Another thing I guess I could add, this might be a hot take, but if they were to ever bring 2 CP back, I think they should make the cooldowns like for defenders like something not absurd, but like you shouldn't be able to, like, as soon as you spawn, let's say it's Overwatch 2, they bring 2 CP back, you're stalling, your ball goes to point. Okay, your ball has thousands of health. Okay, he finally dies. Now you have a Mei on point. She's got ice block. That doesn't exactly cap the point, or like it doesn't stop them from capping, but she stays alive long enough for, let's say a Tracer to come out, and then you have Kiri to TP on, use her Immort, and then a BAP, and then the whole cycle just repeats. Like, I don't think if 2CP were to come back, I don't think you should have your cooldowns like that.
Yep.
Like, you should have cooldowns disabled, for like, that's, maybe the first 10 seconds you walk on a spot, kind of like Ball's hook, it's off cooldown as soon as you leave spawn. Something like that. Like, I think
I would even say,
fair.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there, though.
No,
but
okay.
yeah, I'd say either that, or you could have it to where because obviously recontesting second point defense on any 2CP was such a massive pain to finally cap that point. But if you also, we could look at it and say, all right, if you go out on a hero, you don't get a kill from the time that you spawn to when you die, you have a very long cooldown to respawn, maybe even double the time, and say, oh, if you go out there on Mei, you wall, freeze, hide in a corner, and die after 15 seconds, then I can't think what the cooldown timer, but if it was 8, it's now 16 seconds for you to get your next respawn. So it might help you for a short bit. Or if you go on Ball and you spin around, swing on the ceiling, adaptive shield, you don't kill anything, but you just stall for a while. That next time you spawn, you double your time, and maybe it adds 8 seconds on every time you do that, to where you can't forever stall. But I also like that idea on the cooldowns, because really for me, the 3 big concerns were certain choke points on point A, trying to get through shields and just trying to get through a single choke point were a pain. They've already gotten rid of shields, so that problem's, or to a degree they got rid of shields, so that problem's fixed. Certain maps reworking, like give Hanamura a second area on point A that you can walk through.
Yes,
that would help.
Do.
And then third, whether it be a cooldown thing or a respawn timer adjustment for when you're recontesting point B on defense. I think if they did those 3 things, which they've already kind of done the shield adjustment, I prefer 2CP to push.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Well, I don't think they should mess with any character or any specific character's cooldowns. What they probably should do, which I kind of like more, is in Valorant, what you can do, or in Valorant, whenever you're first starting, like, obviously the game, there are those walls and stuff like that in key positions where you can't see the enemy team and you can't like get a certain position that you want. I think it can be the same thing there, where there's just kind of a barrier, or move the barrier out more to where, even though, let's say, Mei wants to put up a wall or something wants to happen there, there's like a barrier or some area of the map that you just can't use it in. Not really mess with any kind of cooldowns or really kind of try to affect the overall map itself, but more of just kind of a invisible barrier for those kind of weird niche things. I don't think everybody would lose their mind about that.
If honestly, that doesn't pose as a bad idea, but what comes to my mind when you say that is, instead of the defender spawn, how they spawn in one certain spot and they have the barriers to walk out of spawn, I think if anything that should back up so they have further to walk. Mm-hmm. That could also solve issues, like making their don't adjust their respawn, don't adjust their cooldowns, but they have longer to walk before they get to point. I think that would be.
But aren't we doing the reverse of basically the problem that we have with attack on? Because I think it was Rappsure that said that there are just certain maps that are like, it's just too long, or it just takes too long to get to point B. Yeah, are we just making the reverse of that?
Paris is the prime example of that. Now, there was actually one thing.
Well, that's as you're attacking. I'm talking about when you're defending.
Yeah. Well, right.
You're trying to stall.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we're making just the reverse of that. So wouldn't we hear like the same argument of like, well, now it just sucks to try to defend point A because we're having to walk so far away?
Yeah.
The reason. Oh, sorry.
I would say because I can see what Pyrdonis is saying, because it's like when you add length to try to to help it, where okay, the defenders can't attack, can't defend, can't just stall as long as they possibly can. Keep in mind, because the attacker spawn, the defender spawn will always be the same no matter if point A is captured or not. So you're also adding an extra amount of time to be able to go back to point A to be able to defend point A as well, and that's something that we have to consider as well. But I think that one thing that you could also do, and the reason why I suggested this, and when I suggested this change, is instead of having a slow capture rate on the point on any of the points, you have it with no of the tick sections, like no 30-minute 33-second mark or 66 or a full thing. You just have one big loop, and if you fail to capture the point, it will slowly go back down all the way to 0, regardless if it's 60%, if it's 40%, if it's 70%, it'll go back to 0. But you make the capture rate a lot faster, so the defenders can't just keep spawning and just contesting.
They can't do anything crazy.
Yeah, they can't.
Right?
They
Not only does that speed the game
I
up.
get what you're saying. Kind of like push, how he walks faster as long as you've capped it. That makes sense.
Yeah. And the thing is, this has been proven to work in a very similar game. That exact type of how it works is how it works in TF2, which is where a lot of these game modes like Payload and 2CP actually came from. It was very inspired by Team Fortress 2. And 2CP works in Team Fortress 2 because there's no ticks for it. It's just one big thing that you have to cap, but the cap rate is incredibly fast, kind of thing. And it would actually make 2CP a lot more bearable to play. And I would say
because you can't make any more risky choices, right? You can't do any kind of really crazy stuff, and you always need to have some kind of backup to where it's like, okay, if things go south or if this ult happens here, then we need to have somebody either have the ability to move out or somebody that can move quick, which might make Lucio a lot more effective on 2CP more than he already is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will say, and
I think that can actually make 2CP less stale, because 2CP in Overwatch has been stale regardless of which meta is that you make more options, not just to attack, but to defend as well. So not every single match you get on a 2CP map will be the exact same every single time. Because you have all those options to attack and defend, you would have more options. It'd be different every single time. So it'd feel less stale.
Yeah, I would say with 2CP, if they found some way to just making point B easier to cap for the offense, I think would make it better, because similar in a way to push right now, to where if you have no meters and they're already capping their forward spawn checkpoint, if you were playing 2CP and a team was able to snowball ults and capture both the points, especially with how hard it can be to capture point B, it was still winnable, but it was demoralizing for a minute, 15 seconds into the game that, wow, they got 5 minutes something in the time bank, already capped both. Point B is already so tough to cap. If we don't snowball this as well, this is going to be such a tough battle. If you eventually cap B with some time, let's say you have 1 minute cap, but then you eventually got to get a snowball. The difference between snowballing on 2CP and getting both the points super fast, and then versus, okay, well, you cap A, but you don't snowball into point B, and you have to barely work away. You get a first tick, but then because of respawning and all that, they're able to come back, and it takes another couple minutes to get another tick, and it just takes forever. That part, it made, if there's some way where they set point B to being at least more consistent to cap and not as easy for the defense to just say, oh, well, we're just going to stall it out forever because we get our respawns and we're 5 feet away, then I think 2CP actually wouldn't be that bad.
I like that, because that's important for 2CP. You have to have that close encounter kind of stuff, especially for the defending situation, because then you just kind of create this kind of control point map again, but it's for point B. I'm always a fan of that, because it's one of those things where it really, that's one of my favorite parts of 2CP is, you have to exchange your ults wisely, and you have to put yourself in a position correctly to where you can, okay, we know this guy's going to spawn out right here. We need to make sure that we have this backed up, or if they have enough time for a full regroup, we need to get ready for this kind of stuff. We need to move here, like while still kind of working with the point. That was always super fun to me. And that's what, and I think just for me, and I guess like, I think what the 70% kind of the community want is more action, more gameplay, more, kind of exciting things happening. And I think that, the second point on 2CP was probably the most like just crazy actions, ult slinging, like right spot, right time, right moment. It was just a lot of fun. It was super difficult, like when you're dealing with a situation where it's like, oh man, like you're on the defending team and they had like 3 ults lined up because they just rolled you on A, right? And they're going to move straight to B. Those can be like super just kind of like annoying. That's just going to happen. But like that kind of happens with a lot of different areas. That happens just on push whenever they're pushing it into their positions. If you really mess up on those things, there's just going to be those demoralizing kind of like, well, shit, like we shouldn't have fucked up so hard on A. But I think that those kinds of actions need to happen, or those kinds of like situations need to happen more, and need to do. For me, it needs to be more prolonged. Obviously, that's why I like 2-on-2. But those actions need to happen a lot more, and I feel like B on 2CP was one of the best like purveyors of that.
Mm-hmm. Now, question with 2CP: what if we left everything the same? Outside of maybe adjusting some point A's, but we left just about everything the same, except to stop snowballing. And this would go for attack and defense. When point A is capped, all charges go back to 0. Granted, might make the play a little bit slower, but you're not going to have attack team with 3 ults going into point B and defense have nothing because they just got rolled and then instantly lose and say, okay, reduce the chance of snowballing, clear all charge back to 0.
And that would also,
I have an easy answer for that, but I wouldn't do that at all. But
that would also give incentive for players to switch depending on to a different hero, depending on which point you're on. Like I'm not gonna be playing Widow on second point, most likely on Anubis. But I'd probably play Widow on a first point on Anubis, for instance, because of those long sight lines, right? I probably like go 3 or something, right? But as an example,
so this is a
very basic example.
Go ahead.
It's like it's like because if I'm afraid to lose my ult charge, because ults are very valuable in Overwatch, and people are often one reason why it may be beneficial to really switch is because you're afraid to lose that ult charge, kind of thing. It's a big fear to have, kind of thing.
Well, but that's the point, right? Is that like the reason this. And it's tough. It's the same problem that we have with like tanks going back from 30 to 0%. And I don't mean to sound like an asshole. I just really want to like debate and fight people. I haven't debated somebody in a long time, so I really want to. But it's kind of like the same problem, which is like you're creating a scenario where it's like you're advantaging or disadvantaging a group just because they're playing this map or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Like we had the same problem whenever we were talking about like, oh, well, only this team cup will work. Only this team might like, it's really irritating. That's like, oh, we have to do this. But it's like, you're basically saying, oh, well, we have to do this, right? We have to, if we're playing this map, this is what's going to happen. So let's prepare for that outside of the game instead of working on a way inside the game. So, I mean, it kind of runs into the same question of like, what would you guys say generally is like for Anubis? What is the general like good team comp that goes for Anubis and 2CP? If you guys remember.
Double shield.
Double shield.
Perfect.
Double shield with a Torb, a sniper, a Mercy, maybe a Bap.
Or an Ash, or a Junkrat.
An Ash, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Especially on defense with Junk was crazy on defense. Mm-hmm. Especially on first point defense.
So in that situation there, right, what would be the most dangerous or most worrisome ult in that situation for B? Like you just get absolutely smacked on A. What ult are you worrying about the most when it gets to B?
Sigma ult.
Sig ult, I'd say either the tank ults, maybe Junkrat ult, maybe Bob.
Or Junkrat,
maybe Bob.
I'd say Bap window.
And Bob, Bob.
Window is terrifying for me.
Right?
Window is terrifying.
Window is pretty much, yeah. I personally, I have a huge hate phoner for Junkrat. Hopefully we can talk about that later, but not right now.
I agree on them as well. Oh, okay. We might be siding on different sides.
Let's get this Anubis stuff right, okay? Because hold on. Okay, let's be fair. So let's get to this Anubis stuff. So window is a pretty big one. I agree. Definitely Junkrat ult, especially with 2CP, is very important because if it's really close and there's just that 1%, if you get the fuck off, you're done, right? But here comes Junkrat ult. He lands it right in the middle of 2 CP. You're done. Right, game over.
And the thing is, like, it's kind of like what it was like. Oh, that just happened, or something.
Well, yeah, it's just like, well, fuck. I mean,
it's like,
might as
fuck.
well get up and go to bed.
I mean, sure.
But
I mean, sure, it's because like because you can't shoot the tire down, but it's like a good Junkrat, like Aquamarine or even like COD Code. They'll just like drop tire. You can't react to that fast enough. You can't shoot. You can't destroy fast enough.
It just drops right down the middle of the point and
it's like, well, that happened.
Yeah, but and that's what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, so those are kind of the main ults that we're worrying about. Sigma is a big one, obviously, because we're dealing with points. You know, Junkrat is obviously a really big one, and Window with Anubis is obviously really good because that entire lane is now just fucked. So I think that it's important to understand that it's like we shouldn't be messing too much with the maps. I like the idea of maps working with certain comps. We should be affecting the characters and not anything outside of the game. So we're worried about 2 CP with Junkrat, Sigma and Bat, right? So what we should probably do is affect those characters like just in general, right? Because if those aspects are better amplified just on 2 CP, that means there still is somewhat of a problem on other maps as well. Maybe, delaying some certain comps are better on other maps than other, right? Whatever, right? So that's just more of a show to me that, these characters need to change and not the map or the overarching like game structure, right? So those things probably need to change most.
I also have a question for you. Now, I've actually been waiting to actually bring this up for a while now. But what if we were to have player-picked hero bans? Like, not like the Blizzard hero pool BS that Blizzard had for the way they did it. But like, player-picked hero bans.
You just gotta take your head off for Junkrat, man.
Yes,
that would be cool.
Yes.
That would be really cool, but they have to add more tank and support heroes before we could do that.
I would agree.
Yeah,
I think we need more tank because DPS we're fine. You know what? We're fine. We have everything because I don't think with DPS heroes anyways. It's like we've pretty much like made every possible playstyle you probably could make with the DPS character. I think maybe like I don't know. You know what? I think the only idea for maybe a future like DPS hero is like a fencer or something like that. That's about it. Like that's pretty much about it that I can think of. But I think that having the option to have hero bans, I think maybe like right now, if we were to introduce say hero bans tomorrow, I would do maybe one tank ban, maybe one tank, one support, and like 2 DPS. And
so the way that they did it, right?
That'd be fair.
Or did they do 1-2-2? They did 1-2-1, right?
They always did different. They did different types when they did it. Like they would do they banned hit scans for like a week, and then they banned.
Echo,
they would
Mercy.
Yeah, they would pick 4 random heroes. It wasn't always a tank, 2 DPS, and a supporter.
Yeah,
that like sometimes
random.
it was kind of random, but it was at least one neutral.
No, it wasn't just random. It was picking by somebody's cat. Like it was somebody's cat. I remember this. It was somebody. I was one of the devs' cat would actually pick just by walking on the tile or whoever it was, and that would be the band hero.
I want to see that. You gotta have to give me an article for that one. I want to know that.
I did not know about that.
I thought it was really cool that they banned hit skins for a week. That was fun. That was peak. That was really cool.
I loved that.
Well, I think that would be an important aspect too. Is like if we were to do like player-owned, character bans, then I think that it would be important not to delineate to only supports can ban supports, only DPS can ban DPS, and only tanks can ban tanks. If a team wants to ban all DPS, then fucking go for it. Like, if that's your choice of playing the game, then by all means go for it. The only thing I'd worried about though is that there should be like ban limits where like a 5-stack, or if they move the 6, whatever, but like a 5-stack can't ban 5 tanks, right? Or 5 support.
Yeah.
Like you're basically ruining the entire game for either tanks or supports.
But I would say here. Yeah. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead. I'll hold
well, just like tanks would do 2. You have 2 slots there, then you have 3 or 4 slots for DPS, and then you have 2 slots for support, and then boom, you kind of cover.
See, the thing with the only thing with that is, I still think like as of right now, if we did hero bans tomorrow, it could only be 1-2-1, like 1 tank, 2 DPS. Because you think about it like this: both teams have to choose bans. So in total, that's 4 DPS, 2 tanks, 2 supports. That's a lot of characters, believe it or not. And so that would just be very interesting.
Well, I don't
left it out.
Yeah, I don't mean like they have to ban up to 8 characters. It's more like yeah, they have those, like if they want to ban 2 tanks and 3 DPS, they totally can. Or if they want to ban 2 tanks and 2 supports with 1 DPS, they totally can. They just can't ban like 4 tanks, for supports and all that different stuff. It's like it's based on the slots that they use, right?
Would you say that maybe it'd be like each player would ban like he would in League, or would it be like everybody votes to ban a hero? How would you guys want to?
It would have to be the ban like in League, because voting on that stuff, it'd take way too long to even start the game.
Yeah. To be
I would
fair,
say in
Overwatch-
light.
Oh, I was just gonna say, to be fair, Overwatch like starts really fast, and I feel like there's like I wouldn't mind if it took like a little longer to vote, but again, like voting would just take an absurd amount of time.
Well, no, like let's say a minute for every vote, and you have to ban like let's say 5 characters, right? We're waiting 5 minutes before we even step into the game.
It should be like the Valorant hero choice, you know, like you have like a minute to choose what, or maybe it's not a minute, maybe it's 90 seconds, I don't know, but you get to choose your hero comp based on like everyone else around you, you know. I think it'd be like that, and if it, you know, if you don't choose, it chooses for you. So
right, but I think the reason that like they have that choice there is because you have to play that character for the rest of the game. Which I mean, I guess that's an interesting convo. Is like, should we? Is there enough characters now that we should move to something like League, or should we keep it the same way that it is now? Right, like with League, you have to choose one character and walk with that character. Right? Yeah.
I was gonna say with League references, I may need a little bit of a clarification, at least if you guys are referencing that, because I have actually never played League and I've never watched it.
God bless your soul. You're going.
I haven't played it, but I've watched it, and I think Overwatch is good where it's at right now. I don't think
I'm not an experienced League player. I've played a few times with him, but that's about it. That's my experience with League, pretty much.
Dude, I will also tell you to go mid, dude. You can't bob with me. It's impossible. I'm sorry.
Bro,
I will also say my thought with the votes, you know, assuming it didn't take so much time, was that 4 heroes could get banned, and whether you want to have it at a maximum 1 tank, 2 DPS, 1 support, you could say pick a random team, they get to vote on a quick ban first. If there's a tie, like let's say they want to troll and just pick 1 vote on 5 different heroes, then it would just randomly pick from those 5. Then the next team gets to pick 2 heroes to ban, so they basically get 2, 3. And then the other team goes back to them and get 4. So it would be 3 voting sections if they could find a way to do it quick enough and say, okay, 30 seconds to vote each section. Like, yeah, it's an extra minute and a half, and that I can see causing some issues.
Just to be very clear, this man just literally described the LOL ban system. But okay, go ahead.
Is that really?
Well, it's the pig system, but yeah, you basically described it.
I like that system. Quite literally hit a randomizer button every single game unless I knew that there was like a 1 trick or something like that. But even so, like if the 1 trick's on my team, like I'm not gonna pick their character to ban or like vice versa. It just depends. It's very situational. But if there's a randomizer button, I'm hitting that.
Well, yeah, and that's like that brings up the conversation earlier, right? Where it's like, should we be able to see the opponent's fucking career profiles, especially with this ban, right? Where we get to basically read and like throw out, because on League they have like there's ranked, right? There's casual, there's ranked, and then there's like Clash, right? Which is like you get an actual ranking score, you can move up the ranks and stuff like that, and you can actually get invited to certain tournaments based off of it. In that, you can actually look at the percentages of what the players, like characters they picked, right? So like this guy plays this character 66%, 33, and then like 12 or something. So you can actually ban based off of that. But I think that system wouldn't work for Overwatch because, like, you know, if we're going to have this switch system, then like you're basically like, let's say 1 player on that team plays 3 different characters, right? We just ban all 3 of those characters, so he has to either play something entirely new, or he's just like trying to really think of like, okay, how do I stay out of this fight while still being effective and without feeding, right? Because I think there's still like a higher skill level for League, but for Overwatch, like there are certain characters that if you're really good at them, but you can't play them, like you might just be totally out of your depth with others. Yeah. That might ruin the stuff.
Like if they went in and just said, let's focus. Yeah. Like if they said, let's just destroy Fudgy, and anytime we see him, we're banning Orisa and Reinhardt every single game, I'm going to be like, I mean, I can kind of play Sig, but I'm just screwed. I mean, I'd have to try to counterpick.
Or it's like, or it's like, we see Ito, let's just ban ball kind of thing, or something like that. You know?
Yeah, like I'm sure then they're gonna have people frustrated. Like you're gonna have Hog. I mean, actually, I'd be fine if we do that for Hog. But
yeah.
I think honestly that would be honestly, I would think that would be okay
but take away role queue so other people can like. Let's say
Yes.
you're
Oh
playing
my
tank.
gosh.
If you're
Speaking
playing
my
tank,
language. That's
if
right.
you're playing tank and someone takes your tanks away, but you can play a support character that's unlocked, you should be able to play support and let someone else play tank.
There you
I will
go.
also say, going back to Overwatch 1, even as a tank player, my favorite comps were 1-3-2 and 1-4-1. Whether it be a Mercy 4 DPS and I just had to sustain on a tank, or 2 supports 3 DPS. I loved being solo tank in those comps.
Fun.
But you know what else
fun.
though? But you know what else though? But you know what else though? A lot of these hero bans and everything that would be player chosen and everything, that would eliminate a lot of these stale meta comps. We get like, oh, we can only run Dia for like 5 months, or like Gillich for 2 or 3 years or whatever. It would eliminate that need, so you wouldn't even need the role key anymore. Because
well, yeah, and actually
option.
thinking about it too, we like if something is like misbalanced or something like that, or if somebody believes that like some character is overbalanced or whatever, right? Like the ban system can show like this is the character that gets most banned. This is what we do, right? Don't base it off of like because remember Fudgy, you were saying that like she has an almost like 100% play rate, right? Now that's cool and all, but again, like just having that 1% delineation is important. But a ban rate seems a lot better because if there's like a small differential between two characters, I can, there's, obviously I'm going to go for that one character, but there's still some play wiggle room kind of, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if everybody's banning this character, then that means that it's just controlling the field or controlling the game too much. So it can help the devs kind of primarily focus on that target. I think that's what they were talking about a lot when it first came out, is that this would help the devs kind of focus on certain characters that needed to be changed. Whenever, who was the one that always kept getting picked for getting banned? It was Widow, right? Widow always kept getting picked.
Widow did get picked a good bit, yeah.
Yeah,
at least when they were
one.
doing their it felt like they were constantly banned, or like every other ban cycle they would have Widow picked.
More like Ana. I think
right.
Ana,
and
I think
after those,
Ana was at that issue. I think Ana at one point Ana was also banned. Even though Ana is one of the most fun characters that not necessarily is both to play against and play itself and play with. Is like people are like, why are you banning like Ana? Or like I think also happened with Ryan as well one time too. Like nobody complains about Ryan, but they banned Ryan because of his high pick rate. I think that how they should do it is that hey, they should ask you a question. Hey, how good was this match? And if you say, hey, look, it was bad, and then they should give you an option. Hey, here's why.
No, they shouldn't do that stuff because everybody always chooses like if the saltiest toxic motherfucker, okay, that was literally just ear raping everybody throughout the game is obviously going to say this is the worst game of all time, guys. Oh my god! Like no, just like do the ban rate stuff, like and that can really tell the devs like, okay, this character is just getting banned way more. Obviously, target that one.
You know what they could do? You know what they could do?
Mm-hmm.
Back before the Jungle Inferno update came out for TF2, there are some complaints about there's a problematic weapon that it's spy high called the Dead Ringer. The Dead Ringer was the most annoying thing to play against, right? And I was like, okay, well, here's our suggested changes. Do you as community like these changes? They'll come out and say, and if the community says yes, it went through, and it was just fine. So I think that because remember, when it comes to something like even like Blizzard actually mentioned this. He said, hey, look, one of the reasons why we didn't really realize that when like Horizon and Paris were problematic for a lot of people is because we didn't know, because it wasn't like a pick system. We didn't know that a lot of players dislike these two maps, generally speaking, kind of thing. As far as like the overall player base, not just like that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think because you are banning those characters a lot, you'd give a lot of feedback towards Blizzard saying, hey, look, because we know how Blizzard is. That Blizzard is very much does things based on data. They may not know the reason why certain things are caused certain parts of data to be the way they are, but they're very data oriented kind of thing. And so data cannot tell you how anti-fun something is. It'll only tell you unless you are asking to ban it, kind of thing. Right?
Kind of, yeah. Then when you're asking to ban it, it can definitely tell you, yeah.
Like pick rates by alone can't tell you if a character's fun to play against or whatever.
Right, because a character could be like a certain team comp could be used like over and over and over again. But again, like that's why I always say like Goats was played like 100% of the time. but like I thought that was probably the most fun outside of competitive, I guess, but the most fun like team comp to play with and against, right? There was just a lot of action, a lot of movement, strategy across the map was really good. Ults were definitely built up. Support ults were very important, especially Lucio. And it just seems like there was a lot of action that every single person could have on that field. That even though like it was the most played, team comp, it was, I think, one of the funnest.
I actually have a hot take. I do agree in some ways with goats, but I also think that, in my opinion, I think my favorite version of like a whole W whatever is Rush. I think that Rush was a fun meta. I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that, but I actually really I loved Rush. So you had like Lucio.
I have no clue what Rush is. Actually,
It was like
no clue.
It was like Lucio.
It's like Ryan Zarya.
Like Ryan Zarya. It was like
Yeah,
it was
Ryan
like
Zarya,
it
Lucio,
was
Ryan
essentially,
Zarya,
Dapper
Hanzo.
Moira,
or like Cassie or something. It was essentially like traditional death ball, but it was like with a bit more variation to it. I think.
Sounds based. Yeah.
Bring back quad tank. I liked that.
Oh my god.
Triple tank Beyblade battle.
Dude,
Let's go.
That's what we do. That's what we do with 5v5 is we go 3 tanks and then we do Brig Lucio.
Quasi-goats. We do quasi-goats.
Yeah, and then we just
Quasi-goats.
Yeah,
That'd be scary.
It was the best.
Yeah, I'm kind of kidding a little bit. I like the rare
You're not.
occurrence
You're
where
your heart's going, bring it back, Jesus.
I mean, hey, Ryan Zarya Diva, then you either have a hog or some outlier tank to just kind of mix in there.
Hell
And then just run. It was Lucio Moira at the time because I know Brig wasn't a thing. I mean, some of those comps were fun as long as they weren't overwhelmingly meta for super long, or they were kind of niche.
Now I will say this
That would
though.
be cool. Until you got. Oh, sorry.
Okay, sorry. I will say this though. I think that if you're gonna have some foreign quasi goats, I think at least a couple of the characters need to have some type of FPS mechanics in an FPS game. And I think that when I played quasi goats with Pyrdonis over here, I actually enjoyed it because I was playing Kiriko, and Kiriko, I wasn't even healing half the time. I was just throwing daggers and dinking people. That was fun. I like dinking people. And then I think if you're in an FPS game, you have to have some FPS mechanics in there, not just MOBA. But man, when you get a good like balance of that, it feels great, and that's how Overwatch should be, in my opinion. But that's just
that's another character, Kiriko, that I fucking hate because it's the same as Hanzo. You basically pre-fire the fucking corner. Oh my gosh, so much fun, Rap. Thanks for playing that character. Except you get 3 times the damage on fucking headshots. Thanks, bro. Oh my gosh, so much fun. Thanks for not healing me again.
You're welcome.
In space.
But you know, we still win somehow.
We still win. Damn pre-fires. Okay, Junkrat. Let's get to Junkrat because I want to fucking yell about Junkrat.
Yes.
Please,
okay.
Please. Okay.
Oh,
Junkrat is the most broken character in the game, 100%. Not only is his map-like situation, so basically any kind of tight corner that you go around, you're fucked, right? Because in 0.5 seconds, if you turn that corner, he's sitting right there, left click, shift right click, you're done. Game over. You might as well go back to spawn. Any tight corner, you're fucked. Trap, I guess you're going to be sitting there for 6 seconds, hoping to God that some tank comes by and helps you, or even if you are the tank, you hope to God that you have some kind of shield, or you're playing Hog and they're not playing an Ana because you're basically going to get fed. The amount of damage that he does builds up his ult charge like unbelievably easy. And when it's one of those things where, I mean, I know in Overwatch 1 you could basically just one-shot fucking tanks with it, but now I think everybody has that big boost, so now you're just basically targeting squishies. But like because the game now is so split up or so spread out, it's unbelievably easy for you to hide behind a corner and wait for either a prime target or a grouping of a target and just kill them all. And again, when we're playing fucking Overwatch and we like to play FPS games, I guess, we all have to return back to spawn because one person died. It's not fun, and it really limits the amount of the map that you can play on.
I will say this though. There is
awesome. I'm glad we agree. Fuck yeah, dude.
There is one there actually is one aspect I think that here's how I would change Junkrat. So, for whatever reason, even a roller, if you get hit by a roller, it will still count as full damage.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think if you get hit by a roller, it shouldn't be doing a full damage as a direct hit. That's ridiculous. That is 100%. Ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
100%.
Yeah. I will say. Wait, actually, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, as someone, I don't really find an issue with Junkrat. I'm gonna be honest. I pocket Junkrat when that's my thing. That's my gimmick. I'm a Mercy player, and I pocket Junkrat. I've
This is
always
true.
done this. I've done it for like 2 years now. It's my favorite thing in the world. You will catch me doing with COD code at like 4 in the morning for absolutely no
Aqua.
reason, just
Or Aqua.
winning games. Okay.
No, there is a reason. It's because
Yeah,
damage
it's
boosted
just
Junkrat.
even
you can
before
kill people in one shot.
even no, in Overwatch 1 too though. Like he just has so much damage. So I kind of know how to play around Junkrat, I think, from that experience. So I personally don't have like that much of an issue with him, but I can see how he's just absurd. And his hitbox with his mines, it's kind of crazy. And the double mine, and then the fact that he can like triple mine in over the roof, and just he has another one by the time
Yep,
he
if he
lands.
can't kill you with the first
kinda,
one, he'll kill you with the second one. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
kinda,
well, cool.
it's
kind
kind of absurd.
It's kind of like absurd as Roadhog Hook. That's how absurd the mine like left click combo is. It's
Well,
just,
but didn't they?
it's
Because I
absurd.
feel with Hog, they did fix it. Because I haven't been one shot by Hog in any of the 5 games that I just played recently, right? Like, I mean, unless I'm obviously half health, but like whenever he pulls you full, like I haven't been one shot yet.
Hog
It's
is still
been
the same.
better.
Hog is still the same for the
It's
most part. I'd say.
50-50. Like, if I'm against a good hog and I get hooked, I'm like, oh shit, am I gonna die? And half the time I do, half the time I don't. It really depends on whether my Curie Suzus me, or if he like takes a step back on a high ground, so the bullets go like up instead of it directly into my head. Like it just depends. Like I'm not too mad about Roadhog.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can understand the one hit wonder, but I think they actually, because that's one of the, I think that's the second most hated thing that I have is that hog hook. But I'm pretty sure that they fixed it because in all of these games, even when, he had full headshot like move on me, I was put down to like, I think it was like 20 or 15 health on a 200 Ana, and I was able to kind of like move out of it. So I think that like if they keep hog in that situation, because I'm pretty sure you can get hit while getting pulled by the hog hook, right? It's just really difficult to hit, obviously.
Yeah.
So like that can obviously be a good work towards. Sure, he's not going to one shot, but it leaves you unbelievably low, so that somebody like a DPS or a support can just one shot you. So I'm okay if they do something like that with hog, and it just gives you that situation. Like it's the same thing with Cassidy stun, right? Make it a slow so that people that can get out can still get out, but if you're skilled enough, you can still get the kill. Right? But with Junkrat, there is no getting out, right? If you're walking around a tight corner, you're dead. If you get caught in a trap, you're dead. And this all builds up so much percentage of his ult that all y'all are going to be dead in like fucking 10 seconds, right? If everything goes the way that he wants it, and the ability to just bomb somebody and then bounce out with it, it's just not fun. It's just not fun to watch a Junkrat flip away on you. It's like, okay.
Yeah, with Junk, I would say there's really only 2 things that kind of bug me with him, because I'd say overall I don't mind Junkrat, but there are 2 things that get me, and it kind of goes with Widow and Hanzo to a degree, and that is just the one-shot ability of just M1 with a mine, which granted takes some skill to hit that, although I don't think the mine is as tough. I mean, I haven't played a ton of Junk personally, like a bit, but
I would say
I'm not a crazy Junk.
I'd say it's easy enough that I can do it and I don't play Junkrat.
Yeah.
I'd
As
say
long as I just
that.
get the corner, I'm good. Yeah.
Relative to something like trying to get a Widow HS on a Tracer, for instance, that's a bit harder than just mine spam or like M1 once and she's dead kind of thing. It's like
I'd say that.
yeah.
And then I was also going to say the stuff where it bounces on the floor and still does full damage, that I'd be fine if it did like maybe a little bit less. I mean, again, personally, I play tank, so it's like, yeah, I feel him shredding me down, but he's not like the biggest worry in the world because I play mostly tank, so I'm not going to get one shot by Junk ever.
Well, but to be
I
clear,
do see
you
that.
play tank, but you also play like Ryan, right? And you play Orisa. One that has a shield, and then one that builds a bunch of health, right? So obviously, yeah, you're not going to feel that because you can either block it or build a bunch of shield against it.
Yeah. So it's like I don't have a super strong statement on Junkrat. It's like, yeah, I can definitely see how he would be annoying to Squishy, but there's also
like what if
he's
he
very
was, like,
counterable too. Like you got to look at it's like Junk in a brawl close range. Yeah, he's really good, and then really skilled Junks. Your COD coach, your Aquamarines, they're going to be able to snipe out Pharas and flank and take out snipers.
Echoes,
now you're
Echoes
relying on
across the
other
map.
players to try to
And
counter
Echoes.
Junkrat, right?
Yeah, they'll be able to do that. But for the most part, I'd say a couple issues, or not really a couple issues. Maybe a problem for Junk is he has too high of a skill floor. Because I feel like it's pretty easy, like at least for me, like on DPS, because I go down a couple ranks too. If I just were to pick up Junkrat, I could probably get a ton of value just holding M1 into the general direction of the
Yeah.
team and throwing mine to combo kills.
And
So, I
when
mean-
he died, it was like, okay, what? It's like, okay, what did that
Yeah,
happen?
that
Whatever.
pre-fire shit again. It's the
Yeah,
same
Yeah,
as fucking
still
combo.
though,
Or just
those
spamming
top
jokes.
end Junkrats have some crazy
Or just
skill
spamming
though.
jokes. I mean, playing a spam character is just, just playing in a very spammy thing is just not fun to play against.
Well,
Nor do I find
and even
fun
then,
to play.
to be very clear, it's not that they're very skillful. I think that they not only does he have a low like skill floor, right, or a high skill floor, or whatever. It's that the level of skill to be good to best is very small because all you have to do is just make sure that you combo correctly. This is not true with like any other character in the game, right? Unless you're talking about like ults, right? Where it's like, okay, if I just do this combo right, where I do left one and then shift right click, boom, I got this. I mean, you can do like I guess Soldier where it's like, okay, guess where the health is and then just right click, sure. But like it's one of those things where as long as you know how to do the combo very efficiently and quickly, then like and put yourself in the right spot to do it, it's not that hard to play Junkrat. You can actually become one of the best, right? Because all you have to do is either pre-fire around a corner or set up in a corner just right and make sure that you know how to press M1 shift right click. And then you're done.
I would say the two things I made to Junkrat is this because I think I think getting hand directs should be rewarded kind of thing. Maybe make the hitbox a little bit smaller, but that's pretty much about it kind of thing. But it's like I think I would say revert the buff where they gave him 2 mines. Just have one mine, and maybe just make it where rollers aren't going to do full damage, directed damage kind of thing. That's what I would do. I think Junkrat besides that would be fine. I don't have a human other than that.
I will say this because I definitely like when I do watch junk players. I mean, for the most part, I've seen COD Code play.
Yeah.
I will make the reference to him. I love watching a Junkrat go and make basically junk flank setups with triple mine setups of setting one down, waiting for the next one to be off cooldown, and be able to go on flanks and do stuff. I think making awesome plays like that would be sweet. It's more so for me, and this goes for a lot of heroes, it's just the one-shot ability on a 200 health squishy.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want that out of the game. Like, I like the FPS aspect. Like, someone like Soldier, I think is pretty awesome to have. Like, he's not going to one-shot anyone, but he, has a couple of abilities, and he's basically, just a shooter.
He's
kind of
consistent
mix
damage, right?
Or
And as long as
exactly.
you're pretty good at aiming, you can knock down somebody pretty quickly if you have really good aiming. If you can hit those heads pretty well. Really solid sustain, especially when you're working in like a closed quarters environment where you can drop and you can heal 3 or 4 different people. That's not too shabby. But I agree, it's the same reason why I think like with McCree's son and stuff like that, it probably shouldn't come back because you can just stun right click, and as long as you know how to do that combo, you're good. You can get an easy kill, guaranteed kill.
Yeah.
The slow just seems a lot better because there's more skill to it. Even though you might still get the kill, there's a level of skill that still needs to be played there.
Yeah, I'd still say just any way you could, like if you could find a way and just say, hey, I'm going to remove all abilities for a single hero to instantly one-shot a 200 health target. So, nerf mine damage by Junkrat down to 70, so it caps at 190. I know for a while, like they nerfed Sigma to where his Rock 2-shot combo could not one-shot a squishy.
Mm-hmm.
I'd even say, I mean, this is maybe a little extreme. Delete Widow, delete Hanzo. Bye-bye, gone forever. I'm not going to be sad. Delete, or not delete, change Railgun or just get rid of Railgun and buff for other stuff. I don't like Railgun as a whole.
No, I don't either.
Maybe keep it. Just don't let them be able to hold it for 8 seconds to say, I can one-shot you. Don't peek. I can one-shot you.
Yeah.
I don't. Again, it's always because I don't like taking away from certain games because it feels like everybody that has devoted time or devoted energy into those characters to actually try to be really good at them, like you're basically just saying fuck you.
Yeah, like realistically, you can't do that. I'm not saying like actually delete them. You just can't do that. It's been in the game for too long. I know.
Right. Well, it's more of just creating the situation or creating the map or creating the characters that can not counter it, because obviously there are counters that exist, but like just where the field can open up. That's why I like Shield so much, because it opens up that field and allows you to do stuff.
No, in terms of, here's what I would do. Now for Junkrat, I would do it with what Fudge said. I would lower the damage on the mine itself, where it would still do a decent amount of damage, but it wouldn't like one shot anybody, so they can still get away from it. Right? With Widow, it's like Well, Sojourn is like, well, she's very mobile. I think they should either need to remove her railgun or at least reduce the damage on it significantly. Because you can just like place down her little field thing, let do half the damage, and then just body shot, and it's annoying. It's essentially a one shot still, but it's just a different way to do it. With McCree, right click. If you were to say keep the flashbang to like help with like tracer or whatever, right? But you didn't want to have the right click be much of an issue, I would say make it the same do as much damage as they do on shields, but have a mechanic where versus players it does significantly less, or widen the spread a lot of the fire about the fan like fire make it like a lot more hard to hit on a squishy. Like shields be pretty big anyways, right? But like if you make the spread wider where not all of them will probably hit it, then it'll probably not gonna kill a full 200 HP per target kind of thing. Anyways, right? So you could do it that way too. Now with Widow, it's like she has a very high skill ceiling hero and a very high skill floor hero kind of thing, right? So it's like I don't want to like you said, you don't want to take that away from players who've dedicated a lot of their time to learn that, how to do that properly. But it's like you should definitely make Widow where she's a lot more punishable, in my opinion. I think making Widow a lot more punishable would be better, such as maybe making her less, maybe reducing the range of her hook, or maybe even increase the cooldown of her hook. For instance, I think that you need to make snipers cannot be, especially SKN ones, cannot be super mobile or even high HP. You have to make them very punishable, kind of thing.
It's kind of tough because at least with 2 instances of Overwatch 2 already, like right now Widow is pretty strong, but toward the very start of Overwatch 2,
she wasn't that strong.
I mean, Diva's Zarya were so strong. You just play Diva. So much DM, wouldn't die. If there's a Widow, you just dive them. You got like a 2-3 second cooldown on Jets.
I also find that Blizzard made Sojourn Railgun easier to hit, in my opinion. Is that just me, or does anybody else notice that?
No, I haven't seen any. At least in my rank, I haven't seen any of that shit. They mostly miss. It's funny as hell.
Like, I actually feel like, to me, Sojourn is actually easier to play with the railgun than she was during like the betas. At least
I haven't played her much. I don't have a strong opinion on how
Sojourn.
It's
because they added the whole entire the higher the charge, the wider the shot hitboxes.
Oh, the wider the shot. Ooh, gross. You're probably right about that.
So it's like you made why would you make one-shot characters more accessible? I get you're trying to do that, but it's like maybe certain characters who have that much power, who have the power to one-shot somebody, shouldn't be that accessible. Just saying. But that's just me. I could also say maybe in case for Widow, where it's like they actually increase her headshot multiplier to 3, but make her boss shot damage to say 100, for instance, at full charge. That's
I can see that. But then you're running into the same you're basically playing soldier with extra steps.
With Widow? Not really. If you
Oh, not Widow. I mean Sojourn.
Yeah.
I didn't mean Widow. My bad.
With Widow, I'd say decrease the boss shot damage, but to say something more, or you can make even 80, for instance, where she can't spam shot you twice and you're dead. Make it 80, and then adjust the headshot multiplier to keep it the same. But you are required to hit the headshot to get the most amount of value still. It's requiring you more to get the headshot, which makes it more the amount of you have to input into the character is a lot higher than it is now, kind of thing.
Okay.
All right, what do you guys just thought on that Widow change that I offered?
It's tough for me to say because when Dive is strong, I'm not really thinking Widow is crazy overpowered, but when Dive is not strong,
that's right now
Widow
that isn't
feels
strong. But also, it's even if you were
impressive.
on Dive, you can't catch Sojourn. You can't punish her because she can just glide her away, kind of thing.
Yeah, Sojourn's different.
Sojourn's different. Sojourn is just a different character. I'm not sure why she was released the way she was, but anyway, I'll say this. I think in terms of Overwatch 2, I think that the healthiest point for Overwatch 2 was during Beta 1. Beta 1. All right, what about you, Spec? What do you feel about the whole entire Widow and Sojourn and the one shots kind of thing?
Like I said before,
one shots in a game like Overwatch in the state that it's in now are kind of lame. Like I said, it's becoming more of like, oh, I gotta hide behind the wall, I gotta hide behind the shield. Oh, only 2 of the tanks have shields. Guess we gotta run at them and pray that, you know, our supports or our DPS don't get their head taken off in the meantime. I don't know.
You gotta play those corners, you know. You just gotta
It's
keep sitting
becoming
behind those
less
corners.
fun, you know, when their team has just 2 snipers and you gotta
Yeah.
just pray that your movement is good enough.
Which is why I say I think you should limit the amount of sniper. I don't think you should be more than maybe 1 or 2 snipers. At
Yeah.
most 1. I think actually, you know what? Scratch that. I think 1, in an ideal world, you won't have 1 sniper in Overwatch. But I think that, I mean, Ash is more of a pseudo sniper. She's not really a sniper, but she's more of a pseudo type of sniper, right? But not really a sniper.
Yeah.
But then you
I'm
have,
okay with
yeah.
having an Ash and a Ash and Widow. I feel like that's I'm not. That doesn't bother me as much. It's more so the Sojourn Widow, the Sojourn Hanzo, Widow Hanzo.
Combination thereof. Combination of,
Yeah.
of 2 snipers at once. And I would agree. I don't think that Certain should have been a sniper. You know, I would have also removed. I think I also would have done what Jake offered on Twitter a while back, where you just remove the headshot multiplier unless she's ulting. But even then, it's like her ult feels so oppressive to fight against too.
Yeah.
So I would just remove the headshot multiplier. That's what I would do for Sojourn. Like I would just remove
Make it to where she can't. Honestly, make it to where she can't headshot in her
her ult.
like unless it's her ult. No,
Yeah.
she can headshot in her ult, but I don't think she should be able to headshot like
Normally.
Well, I know. See, I'm iffy about that one because they did take it away. Like, she can't one-shot headshot unless she has a mercy pocket, but you don't really have a Sojourn unless you have a mercy pocket. So,
But that's like Sojourn with the mercy pocket's more busted than before
Yeah.
because they buffed her other parts of her kit, but then the only thing was nerfed the one shot, but they buffed, and of course with the with the mercy damage boost, it even Zen in Discord orb, that breakpoint's still there.
Yeah.
And that's and that's just pretty huge. All right, so also, I think there's one thing I think they could also add to the game that would make maps feel a lot less stale. Add a map creator that anybody could use. Like you would see the Hammer for Source games. Anybody can make a map, and if people like it a lot, it could be officially added to the game. And there you go.
that'd be kind of cool. But that would be something like later down the line, I think, maybe.
Yeah. And I would agree, but I do think that it should be a goal eventually. I think that having a public map creator program that anybody could use would be nice.
Yeah.
But that's just me. Maybe not have the full-on details if Blizzard doesn't want to have any, like, oh, you can't add any, they don't want us to say mod, add any custom files to it. They can just have, you know what, just let us at least gray box it, and then you can do the rest kind of thing. See how it plays out in a gray box. If it works out pretty well, you're good to go. Alrighty, I think that is that it for us? Is that what we want to discuss? I think so, right?
I'm
That's
good.
pretty
I
good.
covered all my favorite spots.
I will say one thing real quick. I hate Lamp. I hate Suzu. That's
Yeah.
really.
Oh, cry
Especially-
me a fucking
especially-
river about Lamp. Oh my
especially-
gosh, boo
Honestly,
fucking
I'm
who.
gonna be honest. I like Lamp more than Suzu because Lamp you can shoot and it's on a much longer cooldown. Suzu, you're just
It does more of
Yeah.
it does multiple things at once.
Okay,
It does multiple
fair.
things at once.
Hi, babies. Oh my god. I don't get to kill whoever I want anymore. Man, I have to actually play with abilities. God,
There you go. Hey,
I just want to swing my hammer and kill 3 people, okay? I don't want to have to deal with something.
I'll say this. I think that Susie feels as bad as it is, especially when it's being situated by teleport. Susie, Kiriko walks in, teleports. Oh, but I'm about to kill this is in that position. Oh,
her
sorry.
TP should be nerfed too.
Yeah,
Her TP is kind
I
of
think her TP probably needs to be nerfed. I would say that maybe like remove like the invulnerability part of.
They should get a longer cooldown.
If they don't
Something like
reduce
that,
damage,
yeah.
at least a longer cooldown. Yeah.
Mhm. Or at least I think for Susie, what they could do is they can remove the heal aspect of it. They just remove the burst heal that you get from it, and then nerf like maybe the range of the teleport. That's what I would do for
I
Kiriko.
will say though, I feel like one thing I experienced trouble with on Kiriko a lot is the fact that her abilities get canceled very easily, or they don't cast out necessarily because of their cast
yeah.
time.
There's also
And
that
I
one-
have
There's also
pretty
that
high
map,
ping.
There's also that map origin bug that she has. Have you seen it?
Oh yeah,
where she just teleports and then at the center of the map because like somebody leaves the game or something or whatever, and she just teleports like off the map or something, and you're just like, oh, that's it.
Yeah, but I feel like when you Suzu shouldn't, it should be like nano, like almost immediate but not exactly immediate, because I feel like, it's very hard to get your nano canceled. It should be hard to, for your Suzu to not cast out. I feel like I'm always looking at my feet and I see the flower sprout and I look at the kill cam and I didn't even do it on their screen, and that's not cool. Same with the TP, but the TP I understand a little bit more.
Yeah. Well this is I'm like, okay, I see like the particles like explode. I'm like, and apparently
it explodes on my teammate and I die, and I'm like.
Or it's like you see it explode and everything, but he somehow doesn't count as being used for whatever reason. It's probably the most annoying thing. Playing as Kiriko anyways. Alright, her role's been put into place for the most part. I think having like three times the clock is just ridiculous on as far as cooldowns go. Alright, I believe that's it. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for coming and talking on the podcast. It was nice having all three of you on here and discussing.
It's good.
Discussing Overwatch.
Yeah.
Hope you have a great.
We'll be back. It'll be cool.
It'll be cool. We'll do episode 2 eventually. We'll probably discuss other random crap. Not just Overwatch 2. But...
We still have a lot of random crap to talk about, just not about video games. Okay. I'm still holding you to that. I want to talk about it.
Oh yeah. Right? All comic books, just overall like media, whatever, like entertainment, etc. I'll talk about all that kind of stuff, but. That'd be kind of cool talking about Overwatch first, All right. Thank you all for coming. Sure. Thanks for watching. And,
have a good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys. It was awesome.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
Yeah.